We already sold everything. We're living here now. Not without my permission.
Please don't do this.
You all have us! The police will decide.
Vanessa. The investment company never existed.
Then I'll protect what's still mine.
3 weeks after her son sold the house she helped him buy, Evelyn Harper saw him in her driveway with his wife, 2 overloaded suitcases, and a smile that died the moment she asked one simple question. Where's the money? They had sold the property for $620,000. They had nowhere to live, and somehow they expected her to rescue them. What they didn't know was that the sale wasn't what frightened her most. It was Vanessa's face when Evelyn mentioned the paperwork she thought nobody remembered. That was when Evelyn knew someone had lied. Welcome to today's story. If you enjoy emotional drama and shocking twists, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more unforgettable stories. And before we begin, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. 3 months earlier, Evelyn Harper believed the worst part of her life was already behind her. At 66, she had grown used to the quiet of her small house outside Dayton, Ohio. It was not fancy, not the kind of place people stop to admire from the street, but it was hers. The white siding needed washing every spring. The porch rail had a loose spot she kept meaning to fix. The kitchen still had the same oak cabinets her late husband, Daniel, had sanded and stained with his own hands 20 years earlier. Nothing about the house was impressive, but every corner held a piece of her life. Evelyn lived modestly because that was how she knew how to live. She clipped coupons, drove a 12-year-old Honda, and kept a careful notebook of household expenses in the top drawer beside the stove. Her pension was stingy but not large. Daniel's life insurance had helped for a while after he died, but most of it had gone into medical bills, repairs, and the kind of small emergencies that never seemed to stop coming. What remained, Evelyn protected with the caution of a woman who understood that no one was coming to refill what she spent. Except once, she had spent too much. 4 years earlier, her only son, Caleb, had called her with excitement in his voice. He and Vanessa had found a house. 3 bedrooms, a fenced yard, a renovated kitchen, a good neighborhood close to Caleb's work. Evelyn still remembered sitting at the same kitchen table, holding the phone to her ear, smiling so hard her cheeks hurt. Caleb had sounded young again, hopeful again, like a man about to build something solid. Then he had gone quiet. The down payment was the problem. He and Vanessa had saved some money, but not enough. The seller had other offers. The bank wanted more cash up front. Caleb never directly asked her for help at first. That was part of what made it harder. He circled the subject carefully, ashamed but desperate, saying he understood if she could not, saying he knew retirement money was not meant to be touched. Evelyn had told herself she was not being pressured. She had told herself this was what mothers did. She had told herself Daniel would have wanted their son to have stability. So she withdrew $40,000 from her retirement savings. The day she gave Caleb the cashier's check, he had hugged her in the parking lot outside the bank and whispered, "I'll make this right, Mom. I promise." Vanessa had hugged her too, though not as tightly. She had smelled of expensive perfume and kept one hand on her phone the whole time. "We'll never forget this," Vanessa had said. At the closing, Evelyn's contribution had been documented as down payment and assistance. The title went in Caleb and Vanessa's names because Evelyn had not wanted ownership complications, but she had been clear with Caleb. If they ever sold, her contribution would come back to her. Maybe not with profit, maybe not with interest, but the $40,000 was not a gift to be swallowed and forgotten. Caleb had agreed. He had even nodded with that serious expression he used when trying to prove he was a responsible man. Vanessa had been in the room. That was the part Evelyn kept coming back to later. Vanessa had heard every word. For the first year after the purchase, things seemed fine. Caleb invited Evelyn over for dinners on Sunday evenings. Vanessa posted pictures of the new house online with captions about hard work, blessings, and building a future. Evelyn never commented on the posts, but she looked at them. She noticed the fresh landscaping, the new sectional sofa, the glossy kitchen appliances. Sometimes she wondered how they paid for all of it, but she pushed the concern aside. Caleb had a good job in logistics. Vanessa worked in marketing consulting, or at least that was how she described it. Maybe they were doing better than Evelyn realized. Then the visits became less frequent. At first, Caleb blamed work, quarter-end reports, staff shortages, new software rollout. Evelyn accepted each explanation because she wanted to. He was busy. Adult sons had busy lives. A mother could not expect to remain at the center forever, but distance had a sound. Evelyn learned it in the pauses before Caleb answered simple questions. She heard it when she asked how Vanessa was, and he said, "Good," too quickly. She heard it when she asked whether they were still enjoying the house, and he changed the subject to the weather. She heard it most clearly in the way he stopped dropping by alone. Vanessa's behavior changed too, though it had never been warm to begin with. She did not insult Evelyn outright. Not then. She was too polished for that. Her cruelty came wrapped in concern. "Evelyn, you really should think about updating this kitchen someday," Vanessa said once while standing beside the stove, looking around as if she were touring a property she would never buy. "I know you're attached to things, but old houses can start feeling sad if you're not careful." Another time, during a dinner Evelyn had cooked, Vanessa pushed peas around her plate and smiled. "You're so good at making things stretch. I wish I had that skill. I just can't live like every dollar is a crisis." Caleb had laughed awkwardly and reached for his water. "Vanessa." "What?" Vanessa had said, all innocence. "I meant it as a compliment." Evelyn had smiled because that was what she had always done. She had learned, over many years, how to keep a table peaceful by swallowing the sharpest thing in the room. But later that night, after they left, she had stood at the sink washing plates and felt the words settle inside her. Every dollar is a crisis. Vanessa had not meant thrift. She had meant poor. She had meant small. The first real warning came in February. Caleb called on a Thursday afternoon and asked whether Evelyn still had copies of the paperwork from their closing. His tone was casual, but too casual. Evelyn was in the laundry room folding towels. She stopped with one towel half folded in her hands. "What paperwork?" she asked. "Oh, you know. Just old documents, the down payment stuff, bank things." "Why?" There was a pause, not long but long enough. "Vanessa's organizing records for taxes," Caleb said. "She thought maybe you had copies." Evelyn looked down the hallway toward the small cabinet where she kept important files, birth certificates, insurance policies, Daniel's death certificate, her will, the closing paperwork from Caleb's house, stored in a blue folder labeled in her own handwriting. "I have them," she said. "But if Vanessa needs something, she can tell me exactly what." Another pause. "Right," Caleb said. "Sure, don't worry about it." After they hung up, Evelyn stood still for several seconds. Something about the call bothered her. Caleb had never cared about paperwork. He was the kind of man who let unopened bank envelopes sit on counters until someone reminded him. Vanessa cared about paperwork. Vanessa cared about appearances, control, records that could be used when useful and forgotten when inconvenient. Evelyn went to the cabinet and pulled out the blue folder. She sat at her kitchen table and reviewed everything slowly: the settlement statement, the cashier's check receipt, the note she had written for herself after the closing, $40,000 toward down payment. Caleb understands repayment if house is sold. Discussed verbally, Vanessa present, it was not a formal contract. Evelyn knew that. She had not asked for one because she had not wanted her son to feel mistrusted. At the time, putting family terms into legal language had felt cold. Now it felt foolish. Still, she did not throw the folder back into the cabinet. Instead, she made copies. One set went into a large envelope she placed in the bottom drawer of her bedroom dresser. Another went into a fireproof box in the hall closet. Then she took photos of the key pages with her phone and emailed them to herself. It was a small act. Quiet, private. No one knew she had done it. But as Evelyn pressed send, she felt something inside her shift. Not suspicion exactly, more like waking up. Over the next few weeks, Caleb became harder to reach. He ignored 2 calls, replied to texts with short answers, and canceled a planned lunch because Vanessa had something important going on. Evelyn asked if everything was all right. Caleb said yes. Evelyn asked if money was tight. Caleb said no. Evelyn asked if the house was okay. This time he did not answer until the next morning. "Everything's fine, Mom. Just busy." Evelyn stared at that message for a long time, then she saved it. By early April, she noticed Vanessa had stopped posting pictures of the house. No new furniture, no backyard dinners, no carefully filtered coffee cups on the kitchen island. Instead, there were vague quotes about risk, growth, and choosing abundance. Evelyn did not understand most of it, but she understood performance. Vanessa was performing for someone. One evening, Evelyn drove past Caleb's neighborhood after a doctor's appointment. She told herself it was not spying. It was on the way home if she took the longer route. When she passed the house, she slowed just enough to see the front yard. A real estate speed sign had been removed recently. She could tell from the square patch of disturbed grass near the sidewalk. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Maybe she was imagining things. Maybe a contractor had left a sign. Maybe the neighbors had sold their house. Maybe there was a perfectly harmless explanation. Evelyn did not stop. She drove home with her heart beating too hard and her mind full of questions she was not ready to ask. That night, she pulled up the county property website. She had used it before to check tax records on her own home. Caleb's address still appeared under his name and Vanessa's, but the site warned that recent transfers could take time to update. Evelyn wrote down the parcel number anyway. Then she placed the note inside the blue folder. 2 days later, Caleb called. His voice sounded strained, but cheerful in a way that made Evelyn's stomach tighten. "Mom, are you going to be home tomorrow morning?" "Why? Vanessa and I need to stop by." "For what?" Another pause. Evelyn had grown tired of pauses. "We just need to talk," he said. The old Evelyn would have softened immediately. She would have asked if he was eating enough, sleeping enough, worrying too much. She would have offered soup, coffee, a place to sit before she even knew what was wrong. But this Evelyn looked at the blue folder sitting on her kitchen table and felt the weight of $40,000, 4 years of trust, and one son who suddenly could not answer simple questions. "I'll be here," she said. The next morning, Evelyn woke early. She made coffee but did not bake. She wiped down the counter, straightened the chairs, and placed the blue folder inside the drawer beside her. Not hidden far away, not displayed, just close enough to reach if she needed it. At 9:17, car doors slammed in her driveway, not one door, two. Evelyn stood at the kitchen window and looked out. Caleb's black SUV sat crookedly near the curb. Caleb climbed out first, pale and unshaven, wearing yesterday's shirt. Then Vanessa stepped out from the passenger side in oversized sunglasses, dragging a large gray suitcase behind her. Caleb opened the rear hatch. A second suitcase waited inside. Evelyn's breath caught. They were not stopping by to talk. They had come prepared to stay. Evelyn did not move right away. She stood at the kitchen window with one hand on the curtain and watched her son lift the second suitcase out of the back of his SUV. Caleb looked thinner than he had the last time she saw him. His shoulders rounded forward beneath his wrinkled shirt, and his hair stuck up in the back as if he had slept badly, if he had slept at all. Vanessa, on the other hand, looked composed in the way she always tried to look composed. Her sunglasses hid her eyes, but Evelyn could see the tightness around her mouth. The old instinct rose immediately. Open the door, ask what happened, make coffee, offer comfort. Mothers were trained by years of love to move toward distress before asking whether the distress had been earned. Evelyn felt that instinct and hated how familiar it was. Then her gaze dropped to the drawer beside the stove where the blue folder rested within reach. She had placed it there for a reason, so instead of rushing outside, she took one slow breath, wiped her hands on a dish towel, and walked to the front door. She opened it before they could knock. Caleb froze on the porch with one hand raised. "Mom." Vanessa pulled her suitcase closer to the step. "Thank God. It's freezing out here." It was not freezing. The April morning was cool but mild. Evelyn looked from Vanessa's suitcase to Caleb's face. "What's going on?" Caleb opened his mouth, then looked at Vanessa. That look told Evelyn more than his answer would have. It was the look of a man asking permission to speak. Vanessa removed her sunglasses and gave Evelyn a bright, brittle smile. "Can we come in first, or are we doing this on the porch where the whole neighborhood can watch?" Evelyn stepped aside. She did not say welcome. She did not say, of course. The silence bothered Vanessa enough that her smile faded as she dragged the suitcase over the threshold. Caleb followed with the second one, bumping it against the doorframe. The suitcases looked wrong in Evelyn's narrow entryway. Too big, too permanent. They stood beside the umbrella stand like an announcement Evelyn had not agreed to hear. Caleb set his suitcase upright and rubbed the back of his neck. "Mom, we need to talk, so talk." Vanessa glanced toward the living room. "Can we sit down? You can answer me first." The words surprised all three of them. Caleb blinked. Vanessa's chin lifted slightly, as if Evelyn had forgotten her proper place in the conversation. Evelyn felt her own heartbeat in her throat, but she did not look away. Caleb exhaled. "We sold the house." For a moment, the words made no sense. Evelyn had suspected something. She had seen the disturbed grass near the sidewalk. She had saved Caleb's evasive messages. Still, hearing it spoken out loud felt like having the floor tilt under her feet. "You sold the house," she repeated. Caleb nodded once. "Yes, the house I helped you buy." His face tightened. "Mom, when?" Vanessa answered before he could. 3 weeks ago. Closing was last Friday." Evelyn stared at her. 3 weeks ago. "It all moved very quickly," Vanessa said. "Cash buyer, strong offer. It would have been foolish to turn it down." Evelyn's hands were cold now. "And you didn't think to tell me." Caleb looked down at the floor. Vanessa gave a small, impatient laugh. "Evelyn, adults sell houses. We didn't need permission." "No," Evelyn said quietly. "You didn't need permission." But you owed me information. Vanessa's expression sharpened. Owed you? Evelyn walked past them into the kitchen. She needed the table between them. She needed the blue folder within reach. Caleb and Vanessa followed her, the sound of their wheels scraping softly over the hardwood behind them. When Evelyn reached the kitchen, she stayed standing. How much did it sell for? She asked. Caleb did not answer quickly enough. Vanessa folded her arms. 620,000. The number landed in the room with a weight all its own. Evelyn saw the house as it had been 4 years ago. Fresh paint, clean counters. Caleb smiling by the front steps. She saw the cashier's check in her hand. $40,000 she had moved out of an account meant to protect her old age. $40,000 that had seemed like love at the time. 620,000, Evelyn said. For fees and expenses, Vanessa added quickly. Where is it? Vanessa blinked. Excuse me, the money, where is it? Caleb shifted. Mom, it's complicated. It's a simple question. It isn't, Vanessa said, her voice cooling. There are taxes, closing costs, debts, transition expenses. You don't just get handed a bag of cash. Evelyn looked at Caleb. You sold your house for $620,000 and came here with suitcases. So I'll ask again, where is the money? Caleb rubbed both hands over his face. A lot of it is tied up right now. Tied up where? Vanessa stepped forward. In my business. Evelyn let the words settle before responding. What business? Vanessa's eyes narrowed. My consulting firm. I've mentioned it before. You mentioned an idea. It's more than an idea now. Does it have an office? Vanessa smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Not every modern business needs a storefront, Evelyn. Does it have clients? Caleb said softly, Mom, this isn't the time. Evelyn turned to him. Then when is the time? Before the sale? During the sale? After you spent the money? Or after you moved into my house without asking? His face flushed. For a second, she saw shame, real shame. Then Vanessa touched his arm and he looked away. That tiny movement hurt more than Evelyn expected. Vanessa set her purse on the counter without permission. We are not moving in. We need somewhere temporary. A few weeks, maybe a month. We sold at the right time, and now we're positioning ourselves for something bigger. You should be happy for us. You came here because you don't have another place. We have options, then use one. Caleb looked up sharply. Mom. Evelyn held his gaze. What did you expect me to say? I thought you'd help us. I did help you, 4 years ago. The room went still. Vanessa looked toward Caleb, then back at Evelyn. Are we really going to bring that up again? Evelyn felt something inside her tighten. Again? When did we bring it up the first time? Because no one called me before closing. No one asked how I wanted my contribution handled. No one offered to repay $1. Vanessa gave a slow, careful smile. Contribution. That's an interesting word. It's the accurate word. I thought it was a gift. Caleb closed his eyes. Evelyn saw it. The answer before he spoke. Vanessa had not misunderstood, or if she had, Caleb had allowed it. She turned to him. Did you tell her that? Mom, it was never formally written as a loan. That isn't what I asked. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Vanessa took the silence as permission. Evelyn, you helped your son. That's what mothers do. You don't get to hold it over our heads forever because your life feels small. The words were soft, almost conversational. That made them worse. Evelyn reached for the back of a chair to steady herself. For a moment, she was back at every dinner where Vanessa had smiled while cutting her down. The kitchen, the car, the coupons, the quiet little life Vanessa thought proved Evelyn was beneath her. But this time, the insult did not fold Evelyn inward. It clarified something. Vanessa had come with luggage because she believed Evelyn would absorb the damage. Caleb had come because he hoped his mother's love would be easier to face than his wife's consequences. Evelyn opened the drawer and took out her phone, not the blue folder. Not yet. She tapped the screen calmly. What are you doing? Caleb asked. Saving this conversation. Vanessa's face changed. You're recording us? No, Evelyn said. I'm writing down what was said while I remember it clearly. Date, time, amount, and the fact that you believe my retirement money was a gift. Caleb's voice dropped. Mom, please don't. I didn't make it legal. You sold a house with my money in it and told me afterward. Vanessa snatched her purse from the counter. This is ridiculous. We came here because we thought family meant something. Evelyn looked at her. Family does mean something. That's why this hurts. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. Evelyn's hand shook slightly as she typed a note into her phone, but she did not hide it. Let them see. Let them understand that she was not simply reacting anymore. Caleb's voice softened. Mom, we just need a place to breathe. Everything happened fast. Vanessa has money moving between accounts. The business needs capital up front. The bank delays are temporary. We didn't want to worry you. Evelyn looked up. You didn't want to worry me, or you didn't want me asking questions. His eyes flickered. There it was. Not a confession, not enough to explain anything, but enough to tell her she had touched something true. Vanessa stepped between them. We are not standing here being interrogated like criminals. Caleb, get the bags. We'll go to a hotel if your mother wants to act like this. But she did not move toward the door. Neither did Caleb, because there was no hotel plan. Evelyn understood that now. The suitcases were not only luggage, they were pressure. They were meant to make refusal feel cruel. Evelyn walked to the entryway. Caleb followed, alarmed. Mom? She placed one hand on the front door and opened it halfway. You can come back later without the suitcases. We can discuss the money like adults, but you are not moving into my house today. Vanessa stared at her as if Evelyn had slapped her first. Caleb looked stunned. Where are we supposed to go? Evelyn's heart cracked at the sound of his voice. For 1 second, she wanted to take it back. For 1 second, she saw only her son, tired and frightened, not the man who had hidden a house sale from her. Then she remembered the $620,000. I don't know, she said. But that stopped being my responsibility when you decided I didn't deserve the truth. Vanessa's face hardened. You are going to regret talking to us this way. Evelyn did not answer. She only held the door open. Caleb reached for the first suitcase, but before he could lift it, his phone buzzed loudly on the hall table where he had set it down. The screen lit up. Evelyn did not mean to look, but the message was right there, bright against the glass. Vanessa, did you get Evelyn to agree? The transfer deadline is tonight. Evelyn stared at the glowing screen for 1 second too long. Vanessa, did you get Evelyn to agree? The transfer deadline is tonight. The message was not from Caleb. It was addressed to Vanessa, but it had appeared on Caleb's phone. That detail landed quietly but hard. Someone was texting through him, or she had been using his phone, or there was some account Evelyn did not understand. Whatever the explanation was, it did not belong in an ordinary family emergency. Caleb saw her face change and followed her gaze. His hand shot out toward the phone. Vanessa moved faster. She snatched it off the hall table and pressed the screen dark against her palm. That was private. Evelyn kept her hand on the open door. It was on my table. It was still private. Who needs me to agree? Vanessa's mouth tightened. No one. Evelyn looked at Caleb. He would not meet her eyes. His silence had a shape now. It was not confusion, it was fear. Caleb, Evelyn said, what transfer? He swallowed. It's just business. Vanessa laughed once, sharp and humorless. See? This is exactly why we didn't want to talk about details. You see one message and suddenly you're building a conspiracy. I asked a question, and I answered. It's business. Evelyn let go of the door and stepped back into the hallway. She closed it, not because she had changed her mind, but because she did not want this conversation spilling into the street before she understood what she had just seen. Vanessa noticed the shift immediately. Her shoulders eased a fraction as if a closed door meant she had won back the room. She had not. Evelyn walked into the kitchen again. This time she did pull the blue folder from the drawer and set it flat on the table. Caleb's eyes went straight to it. Vanessa's did too, though she tried to pretend otherwise. What is that? Vanessa asked. Copies. Of what? The paperwork from the house purchase. The cashier's check, the settlement statement. My notes from closing, Caleb whispered Mom. Evelyn opened the folder but did not push it toward them. I made copies after you called asking for these records. I wondered why Vanessa needed them for taxes. Now I'm wondering if that was ever true. Vanessa folded her arms. You are being paranoid. Maybe? Evelyn looked at her. Then explain the deadline. Vanessa's face settled into that polished expression she used at family dinners when she wanted to sound reasonable while making someone else look foolish. I am launching a consulting firm. Real businesses require capital. There are vendor agreements, software systems, branding costs, legal fees, client acquisition, deposits. It's not something you would understand if your whole financial is clipping coupons and hiding documents in drawers. The words landed exactly where Vanessa aimed them. Evelyn felt the sting in her chest, familiar and humiliating. For years, Vanessa had treated Evelyn's caution as ignorance, her modest home as failure, her savings as proof of fear. But this time, Evelyn did not lower her eyes. What is the name of the company? Vanessa blinked. What? The business? What is it legally called? Vanguard Retail Strategies. Is it registered in Ohio? Vanessa's expression flickered. The registration is being handled. So not yet. I didn't say that. Do you have clients under contract? Vanessa looked toward Caleb. Are you going to let your mother interrogate me like this? Caleb rubbed both hands over his face. Mom, please, it's complicated. Evelyn turned to him. Stop saying that. Complicated is what people say when simple answers are dangerous. His face went pale. For a moment, the kitchen was silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. Evelyn saw the exhaustion in him again, and it nearly softened her. But then she remembered the message, the deadline, the suitcases, the money, the way he had asked for paperwork and then disappeared behind excuses. "How much of the house money did you give her?" Evelyn asked. Caleb's jaw tightened. Vanessa stepped closer. "He didn't give me anything. We're married, it's our money. That wasn't my question." Caleb looked at the floor. Most of it went into an account for the business. Evelyn felt the room shift. There it was. Not all of it, not clearly, but enough. "Whose account?" Vanessa answered quickly. "A business operating account." "Under whose name?" Vanessa's cheeks flushed. "Mine, temporarily, until the paperwork is finalized." Evelyn stared at her. "You sold a jointly owned house, took most of the proceeds, put them into an account under your name, and now you both have nowhere to live." Caleb flinched. Vanessa's voice hardened. "That is a deliberately ugly way to describe strategic reinvestment." "No," Evelyn said. "It is the plainest way to describe what you just told me." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "You know what your problem is, Evelyn? You act helpless until someone does something you don't like. Then suddenly you know everything. You gave Caleb money because you wanted to feel important. You wanted a claim on his life. Now that we made a decision without asking you, you're punishing us." Caleb said softly, "Vanessa, stop!" But he said it too softly. A whisper tossed into a storm. Evelyn looked at him. "That's the second time today you've let her say something cruel and called it stopping." His face twisted with shame. "I'm trying." "No, you're waiting for this to end without choosing a side." Vanessa laughed under her breath. "There it is, you want him to choose you." Evelyn closed the folder with one hand. The sound was quiet, but it cut through the kitchen. "I want him to choose honesty." Vanessa's confidence wavered then, only for a second, but Evelyn saw it. Vanessa did not mind anger. She knew what to do with anger. She could twist it, mock it, turn it into proof that Evelyn was unstable or jealous or old. But calm questions made her uneasy. So Evelyn asked another one. "Who sent that message?" Vanessa slid Caleb's phone into her purse. "A vendor. Name? No? No, Evelyn. I am not giving you confidential business information because you glanced at a private message and decided to play detective." Evelyn reached for her own phone on the table and opened the Notes app again. She typed slowly, saying the words aloud as she did. Vanessa refused to identify sender of message about transfer deadline. Caleb looked alarmed. "Mom, don't write it like that. How should I write it?" He opened his mouth, closed it. Vanessa grabbed the handle of her suitcase. "We're leaving." This time she sounded like she meant it, but she still did not move toward the door. Evelyn understood why. A hotel would cost money. A short-term rental would require a deposit. Friends might ask questions. Her house was not just shelter. It was the cheapest way to hide the consequences of whatever they had done. "Then leave," Evelyn said. Vanessa stared at her. "You would really put your own son out?" "My son put himself here when he sold a house and let $620,000 disappear into an account he can't explain." Caleb's voice broke. "It didn't disappear. Then show me." He froze. Evelyn waited. "Show me the closing statement," she said. "Show me the account it went into. Show me the business registration. Show me one contract with one paying client. You don't have to give me passwords. You don't have to hand me control. Just show me enough to prove you're not standing in my kitchen asking me to subsidize a lie." Caleb looked at Vanessa. Again, that was the answer. Vanessa's expression turned cold. "We don't owe you a financial audit." "No," Evelyn said. "But I don't owe you my spare room." The words seemed to strike both of them differently. Caleb looked wounded. Vanessa looked offended, as if the room had already been hers in her mind and Evelyn had taken it back. "You're making a mistake," Vanessa said. "I made one 4 years ago," Evelyn replied. "I'm trying not to repeat it." Vanessa's hand tightened around the suitcase handle. "Fine, but don't expect us to come crawling back when this business succeeds." Evelyn almost smiled, not because anything was funny, but because Vanessa still thought success was the point. The point was not the business. It was the secrecy, the pressure, the way they had arrived with luggage before they arrived with the truth. Caleb lifted the second suitcase. His hands shook slightly. Evelyn wanted to help him. The instinct was still there, stubborn and painful. Instead, she stepped aside and let him carry his own weight. At the threshold, Caleb turned back. "Mom, can I call you later?" Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. "You can call me when you're ready to tell the truth." Vanessa gave a bitter laugh and pulled the door open herself. Caleb followed her onto the porch. Evelyn stayed inside, watching as they dragged the suitcases down the steps. The wheels knocked against the concrete, loud and awkward. Before Vanessa reached the SUV, she turned back. Her sunglasses were still in her hand. Her eyes were bare now, sharp and furious. You think those papers protect you, she said. They don't. Evelyn did not answer. She waited until the SUV backed out of the driveway and disappeared down the street. Then she locked the front door, walked straight to the kitchen table, and photographed every page in the blue folder again. She emailed the copies to herself, then to a second account Daniel had once helped her set up for emergencies. After that, she changed the password on her banking app and checked her accounts one by one. Nothing was missing. But when she opened her email, a new message sat at the top of her inbox from the county recorder's notification system she had signed up for years ago and forgotten. Document activity detected for parcel associated with your address. Evelyn clicked it with cold fingers. The alert was not for Caleb's old house, it was for hers. Evelyn read the alert twice before she understood the address. Her address, not Caleb's former property, not the house he had sold without telling her. Her own small white house, the one with the loose porch rail and Daniel's oak cabinets, and the mortgage she had paid off 3 years earlier. The message did not give much detail. It only said a document had been submitted for recording under her parcel number and was pending review. For a moment she could not move. The silence of the kitchen pressed against her ears. Caleb and Vanessa had been gone less than 10 minutes, and already her world had narrowed to one ugly question. Who had touched her house? Evelyn clicked the link in the email. The county website loaded slowly, each second making her hands colder. When the document preview finally appeared, it was only a partial image. The top line showed her name. Beneath it, the words authorization to release property information stood out in black type. The rest was blurred behind the county portal's watermark, but one line near the bottom was visible enough to turn her stomach. Contact party, Vanessa Harper. Evelyn pushed back from the table as if the screen had burned her. It was not a deed, not yet. It did not transfer ownership, and she knew enough not to panic over a single unclear document. But it was something, a request, a step, a probe at the edges of her property filed before Vanessa ever stood in the kitchen with those suitcases. Evelyn took screenshots. Then she downloaded the confirmation page, saved it to her computer, emailed it to herself, and printed 2 copies. Her printer groaned from the small desk in the corner, slow and uneven, but she waited for every page. One copy went into the blue folder, the other went into the fireproof box. Then she called the county recorder's office. A woman named Denise answered after 2 transfers and a long hold. Evelyn kept her voice steady as she gave her parcel number and asked what had been submitted. I can't give legal advice, Mom, Denise said, but I can tell you what the filing type is. It looks like a property information authorization. It allows a third party to request certain records or communicate with offices about the property. Does it let them sell my house? No, Mom, not by itself. Evelyn closed her eyes. Did I sign it? There was a pause. Paper rustled on the other end. The submitted copy includes an electronic signature line with your name, but it hasn't been accepted yet. It's flagged because the notary section is incomplete. Evelyn's knees weakened. She gripped the edge of the table. I did not sign anything. Then you need to put that in writing immediately, Denise said, her tone changing. Email our fraud review department. Include a photo of your ID and state clearly that you did not authorize this filing. You may also want to contact an attorney. Evelyn wrote down every instruction. Her handwriting shook, but the letters stayed legible. When the call ended, she did exactly as Denise told her. She emailed the fraud review department. She attached her driver's license. She wrote one sentence so plain it frightened her. I did not sign or authorize any document related to my property. After she sent it, she called the bank and asked to add a verbal password to her accounts. The representative was polite, patient, and careful. Evelyn answered security questions, changed her online password again, and requested alerts for any unusual withdrawal attempts. It took 20 minutes. By the end, she felt exhausted but less helpless. Agency did not feel heroic. It felt like sitting at a kitchen table with trembling hands, protecting what was left. At 10:06, Caleb called. She let it ring once before answering. Did you know Vanessa filed something connected to my house? Silence. That was enough to make her close her eyes. Caleb. What are you talking about? A property information authorization. My parcel number, her name listed as contact party. His breathing changed. Mom, I don't know anything about that. Then ask your wife. She's upset right now. So am I. Mom, I swear I didn't know. Evelyn wanted to believe him. She heard fear in his voice and maybe even surprise. But she had heard too many pauses from him lately. Too much hesitation, too many answers that arrived only after he checked where Vanessa stood. Where are you? She asked. In the car. With her? Yes. Put me on speaker. I don't think that's a good idea. Then I have my answer. Mom, please. Evelyn looked at the printed alert beside her hand. Tell Vanessa if she filed anything using my name, she has one chance to withdraw it and explain herself. After that, I'm calling a lawyer. Caleb's voice dropped. Don't threaten us. That was not a threat. That was a boundary. He went quiet again. In the background, Evelyn heard Vanessa say something muffled and sharp. Then the line clicked dead. Evelyn stared at the phone. Her own son had hung up on her because she refused to let his wife put her name on a property document. The pain of that was different from anger. It was deeper, older, closer to grief. She was still standing there when the SUV returned. This time, Caleb parked straight across the bottom of her driveway, blocking her car in. Vanessa got out first. She had put her sunglasses back on, though the sun had disappeared behind a pale sheet of clouds. Caleb followed slowly, face drawn and tense. Evelyn opened the door before they reached it, but she stayed inside the threshold. Vanessa did not wait for an invitation. You called the county? Yes. You had no right to embarrass me like that. Evelyn stared at her. You filed something under my property. I requested information, using my name. Vanessa pulled off her sunglasses. Because you never answer anything directly, we needed to know what options existed. We? Caleb stepped forward. Mom, she was trying to help. Evelyn looked at him. Help who? He had no answer. Vanessa laughed bitterly. This is why we're in this situation. You hoard every little thing, your money, your papers, your empty rooms, your control. Caleb and I are trying to build something, and you sit here guarding a house you barely use like it's a castle. It is my house. It's a 2-bedroom house for one woman. Evelyn felt heat climb her neck. That does not make it available. Vanessa stepped closer, her voice low and sharp. You think you're so independent, but you're one bad fall away from needing us. One hospital stay, one doctor telling you that you can't live alone. Then what? You'll be grateful someone planned ahead. The words struck a place Evelyn rarely let anyone touch. 2 years earlier, after knee surgery, she had needed Caleb's help for rides and groceries for 3 weeks. Vanessa had complained about every errand. Evelyn had recovered faster than expected, partly because she could not bear to ask them for one more thing. Now Vanessa was turning that memory into a weapon. Evelyn opened the door wider, not to let them in, but to make the exit clear. Leave. Caleb's face twisted. Mom, wait, no. She used my name on a property filing. She brought up my health like a threat. I want both of you off my porch. Vanessa's expression went flat. Or what? Evelyn reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out her phone. Or I call the police and report trespassing. For the first time, Vanessa looked genuinely startled. Then fury rushed in behind it. You would call the police on your own family? I would call the police on anyone who refused to leave my property. Caleb whispered. Mom, don't do this. Evelyn looked at him and felt something break cleanly instead of cracking. You brought this to my door. Vanessa moved so fast Evelyn barely registered it. 1 second she was standing at the threshold, phone in hand. The next, Vanessa's palm cracked across her face. The sound was small and terrible. Evelyn stumbled backward into the hall table. Pain flashed hot across her cheek. Her phone fell to the floor but did not break. For a heartbeat, the three of them froze. Caleb stared at Vanessa as if he had never seen her before. Vanessa's chest rose and fell quickly, her hand still half raised. Then she said, You made me do that. Evelyn touched her cheek. Her fingers trembled against the heat blooming under her skin. Caleb took 1 step toward her. Mom Evelyn bent slowly, picked up her phone, and turned the screen toward them. The call had connected. From the speaker, a dispatcher's voice said, 911, what's the address of your emergency? Evelyn held the phone in front of her with a hand that would not stop shaking. The dispatcher's voice filled the hallway again. Mom, what is the address of your emergency? For a split second, no one breathed. Vanessa stared at the phone as if the device itself had betrayed her. Caleb stood between the porch and the entryway, 1 foot still inside the house, his mouth slightly open. Evelyn's cheek burned where Vanessa's hand had struck her, a hot, pulsing mark that seemed to spread into her jaw and ear. Then Evelyn gave her address. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, calm, almost flat. I need police at my home. I was assaulted. Vanessa snapped out of her shock. Assaulted? Are you serious? The dispatcher asked whether the person who hit her was still there. Yes, Evelyn said. She is on my porch. My son is here too. Vanessa lunged half a step forward. Give me that phone. Caleb grabbed her arm. Don't. She jerked away from him. She's lying. I barely touched her. Evelyn stepped farther back into the hallway, keeping the phone near her chest. I'm not going to argue while I'm on the line. The dispatcher told her officers were on the way and asked if any weapons were present. Evelyn said no. Her eyes stayed on Vanessa while she answered. There were no weapons, only luggage, paperwork, and a family split open on her front porch. "Stay separated if you can," the dispatcher said. "I can." Vanessa let out a sharp laugh. "This is insane. You're really going to ruin Caleb's life because you're embarrassed?" That was the first thing she said after hitting her. "Not sorry, not I lost control. Not are you hurt. Ruin Caleb's life." Evelyn looked at her son then. He still held Vanessa's arm loosely, not restraining her, not comforting Evelyn, not fully standing with either woman. His face was gray. "Mom," he said, voice low, "please, tell them it was a misunderstanding." Evelyn felt the words hit harder than the slap. A misunderstanding. He had seen it, he had heard the sound. He had watched his wife strike his mother in the doorway of the house he had come to occupy without permission. And still, his first instinct was to soften the truth until it fit the version Vanessa could survive. "No," Evelyn said. Caleb flinched. The dispatcher stayed on the line until the first patrol car turned onto the street. Evelyn saw the reflection of red and blue lights ripple across the glass of her front window. 2 neighbors had come outside by then. Mrs. Alvarez from across the street stood on her porch with a cardigan pulled around her shoulders. Raymond Pike, retired postal worker and full-time neighborhood observer, had stopped beside his mailbox. Vanessa noticed them too. Her expression changed instantly. The fury became distress. Her mouth trembled. Her shoulders curved inward. "Caleb," she whispered loudly enough for the neighbors to hear, "I don't feel safe." Evelyn stared at her. It was almost impressive, the speed of it. One moment Vanessa was threatening her. The next she was arranging herself into a victim. 2 officers stepped out of the patrol car, 1 man and 1 woman. The female officer approached Evelyn first. "Mom, are you the caller?" "Yes, I'm Evelyn Harper." The officer looked at her face. "Your cheek is red." Vanessa spoke from the porch. "Because she got in my face." The male officer raised 1 hand. "Mom, we'll talk to everyone separately. I didn't do anything wrong," Vanessa said. Evelyn almost laughed, but her throat was too tight. She explained what had happened as carefully as she could. She kept it simple. Caleb and Vanessa had arrived with suitcases. She had refused to let them move in. She had discovered an unauthorized property filing connected to her home. She had asked them to leave. Vanessa had hit her. The 911 call had already been connected when it happened. The female officer asked if she wanted medical attention. "No," Evelyn said, "I want the report." That answer surprised her. It seemed to surprise Caleb too. He looked up from where the male officer was speaking with him beside the SUV. "The report?" Vanessa said, voice rising. "You're making this official?" Evelyn did not look at her. "Yes." The female officer took notes. "Do you have any documentation of the property issue you mentioned?" "Yes." Evelyn went inside, retrieved the printed alert and the email confirmation she had sent to the County Fraud Review Department. She also brought the blue folder, though she held it close and did not hand over more than necessary. The officer looked at the county notice, then at Evelyn. "You're saying you did not authorize this?" "I did not. The recorder's office told me to document it." "That's smart," the officer said. The word should not have meant much, but they steadied Evelyn. Smart, not hysterical, not confused, not difficult, smart. A few feet away, Vanessa's voice grew sharper. "She's been unstable for months," asked Caleb. "She keeps records of everything, like people are out to get her. She's obsessed with that old down payment." Evelyn finally turned. "My retirement money is not an obsession." The street went quiet around them. Caleb closed his eyes. The male officer asked Vanessa to lower her voice. Vanessa did, but barely. She insisted she had only pushed Evelyn away because Evelyn had blocked the door and threatened her. Caleb stood beside her, saying almost nothing. When the officer asked whether he had seen Vanessa slap his mother, he looked at the ground. "I saw contact," Caleb said. Evelyn felt something inside her go cold. Contact. Not a slap, not assault. Contact, a word chosen to make violence sound accidental. The female officer's pen paused. "Mr. Harper, did your wife's hand strike your mother's face?" Caleb's jaw worked. Vanessa stared at him, warning in her eyes. "Yes," he said finally, barely audible. Her hand struck Mom's face. Vanessa inhaled sharply. "Caleb." The shift was small, but Evelyn felt it. For the first time that day, Caleb had told one piece of truth in front of someone who could write it down. The officer separated them farther. The male officer spoke to Mrs. Alvarez, who had seen enough from across the street to confirm raised voices, and Vanessa stepping toward Evelyn before Evelyn stumbled back. Raymond Pike had heard Vanessa shout that Evelyn would regret it. Neither had seen the full strike clearly, but the 911 call timing and Evelyn's red cheek mattered. After nearly 30 minutes, the female officer returned to Evelyn. "Based on the statements and visible mark, I can document this as domestic-related assault. Whether an arrest happens today depends on several factors and what the officers determine on scene. Do you want to pursue charges? Evelyn looked past her toward Caleb. He appeared smaller than he had that morning. Vanessa stood rigid beside the SUV, arms crossed, face furious beneath the victim mask she could no longer keep in place. Evelyn thought of the $40,000, the sold house, the business account in Vanessa's name, the filing on her own property, the slap, Caleb's request that she call it a misunderstanding. Yes, she said. I do, Vanessa heard, her face twisted. You vindictive old woman. The male officer turned sharply. Mom, enough. Caleb whispered something to her, but Vanessa shoved his hand away. No, she wants to destroy us? Fine. Let her explain why her own son has nowhere to sleep tonight. Evelyn's throat tightened, but she did not answer. That had always been Vanessa's weapon. Turn Evelyn's boundaries into cruelty. Turn consequences into abandonment. Turn facts into betrayal. The officers did not handcuff Vanessa in the dramatic way Evelyn's fear expected. They issued instructions, completed the report, explained that the case would be forwarded for review, and warned Vanessa not to return to the property that day. The female officer also gave Evelyn a card with the incident number. Keep this, she said, and if she comes back or contacts you in a threatening way, call us. Evelyn took the card carefully as if it were heavier than paper. Caleb lingered after Vanessa got into the SUV. He stood near the walkway, looking at Evelyn with red-rimmed eyes. Mom, he said. She waited. I didn't know about the filing. I hope that's true. He swallowed. I don't know what's happening. Evelyn looked at him, and for the first time in her life, she did not try to rescue him from that sentence. Then you should find out. Vanessa honked the horn once, sharp and impatient. Caleb flinched. He looked toward the SUV, then back at his mother. Where are we supposed to go? Evelyn felt the old ache rise again. This was her son, her only son. But the woman standing in her doorway with a burning cheek understood something the mother of yesterday had not. Love did not require surrendering her house. I don't know, she said. But you cannot come here while you're still protecting her from the truth. Caleb said nothing. Then he turned and walked to the SUV. Evelyn watched them drive away for the second time that morning. Only after the street became quiet did her legs begin to tremble. She locked the door, then locked the deadbolt. She stood with her forehead almost touching the wood and let herself breathe. Not cry, not yet. There was too much to do. She photographed her cheek in the bathroom mirror from 3 angles. She saved the police incident number in her phone. She scanned the officer's card and emailed it to herself with the subject line, Vanessa assault and property filing. Then she called the only attorney she still trusted, Martin Cole, the man who had handled Daniel's estate. His receptionist said he was in meetings all afternoon. Evelyn looked at the blue folder, the county alert, and the police card lined up on her kitchen table. Tell him it concerns possible elder financial abuse, an unauthorized property document, and an assault in my home, she said. The receptionist's voice changed. Hold, please. 3 minutes later, Martin came on the line. Evelyn, he said carefully, what did they try to get you to sign? Martin did not sound surprised. That unsettled Evelyn more than panic would have. She stood in her kitchen with the phone pressed to her ear, the blue folder open on the table, her cheek still hot from Vanessa's slap. The police card lay beside the county alert. 3 pieces of paper, 3 different proofs that the morning had not been a family disagreement. It had been something with edges. They didn't ask me to sign anything today, Evelyn said, but something was filed under my property. The county said my name was on an electronic signature line. Vanessa was listed as the contact party. Martin was quiet for a moment. Evelyn heard keys clicking through the line. Did you authorize her to speak with the county, your mortgage lender, insurance company, or anyone connected to the house? No. Did you ever sign a power of attorney naming Caleb or Vanessa? No. Did you ever give either of them access to your email, online county account, or financial records? Evelyn hesitated. Caleb helped me set up the county notification account years ago. After Daniel died, I don't think he has the password. You don't think, or you know? The question hit harder than she expected. I don't know, she admitted. Then we assume he may have had access at some point, Martin said. That doesn't mean he used it, but we don't leave open doors because we hope family stays polite. Evelyn looked toward the hallway where Vanessa had stood minutes earlier. What do I do? First, do not speak to Vanessa. Do not meet her. Do not let her back in the house. Second, preserve everything. Messages, emails, screenshots, photos of your cheek, the police incident number, the county alert. Third, I want you in my office tomorrow morning. Tomorrow? Yes. Bring the house deed, tax records, the documents from Caleb's purchase, your will, any power of attorney paperwork, and recent bank statements. We need to see whether this was a clumsy request for information or the first step in a larger plan. Evelyn sat down slowly. A larger plan to do what? Martin's voice softened, but not enough to hide the warning. To pressure you, to establish control, to claim you consented to something later. I've seen adult children and in-laws use small authorizations as building blocks. One form becomes a conversation becomes a claim becomes a signature someone says was understood. Evelyn closed her eyes. Caleb said he didn't know. He may not have, or he may not want to know. Either way, your job is not to solve his marriage today. Your job is to protect yourself. After the call ended, Evelyn remained at the table for a long moment. Protect yourself. The phrase sounded simple, but it felt unnatural in her own kitchen. For most of her life, protecting family had meant absorbing discomfort before anyone else felt it. Now protection meant locking doors, gathering records, and admitting that someone close enough to know her habits might have tried to use them against her. She started with the hall closet. The fireproof box was heavier than she remembered, and her hands ached as she carried it to the table. Inside were the documents Martin requested: the deed to her house, the mortgage satisfaction letter, her homeowner's insurance policy, Daniel's death certificate, her will signed 2 years after his funeral, a durable power of attorney naming Caleb as alternate decision-maker only if her sister Ruth could not serve. Evelyn stopped when she saw that page. She had forgotten Caleb's name was there. Ruth lived in Kentucky and had health issues of her own. Back then, Martin had suggested naming a backup. Caleb had still been attentive then. Vanessa had not yet learned how easily guilt could be used as a key. Evelyn had signed the document believing she was being practical. Now Caleb's name sat on the page like a door she had failed to lock. She scanned the document and sent it to Martin with a note. Caleb is alternate POA. I forgot this. Should we change it? His reply came 20 minutes later. Yes, do not mention this to him. Bring original tomorrow. Evelyn read the message twice, then placed the original in a separate envelope. Not mention it to him. Another quiet line drawn between mother and son. At 6:14 that evening, Caleb left a voicemail. Evelyn watched the call come in and let it go unanswered. Her instincts screamed at her to pick up. He might be scared. He might be alone. He might need his mother. But the red mark on her cheek had deepened in the bathroom mirror, and the police card sat beside her hand. She played the voicemail on speaker and recorded it with her tablet. Mom, please call me back, Caleb said. His voice sounded rough. She's really upset. The police thing went too far. I know she shouldn't have hit you, but you know she's under pressure. We don't have anywhere stable right now. I'm not saying you have to let us stay forever, but maybe just tonight. A hotel is expensive, and some of the business funds can't be moved until later. Please don't make this worse. Evelyn saved the voicemail. Not once had he asked whether her face hurt. She sat with that realization until it stopped feeling like a knife and started feeling like evidence. The next morning, she drove to Martin's office with a tote bag full of documents on the passenger's seat and her purse tucked against her hip. She had barely slept. Every sound from the street had pulled her awake. Twice she had checked the deadbolt. Once she stood in the hallway at 3 a.m., listening to an empty house that no longer felt entirely safe. Martin's office occupied the second floor of a brick building downtown, above a dental practice and an insurance agency. He greeted her personally at the door. He was in his late 60s, trim and silver-haired, with the kind of calm that made people tell him the truth even when they did not want to. He looked at her cheek first. Did you photograph that? Yes. Good. The word should not have comforted her, but it did. In his conference room, Evelyn laid out the documents one by one. Martin reviewed them without rushing. He circled the down payment line on Caleb's closing statement. He noted the cashier's check receipt. He read Evelyn's handwritten note from 4 years earlier and did not dismiss it. This helps, he said. It's not a contract. No. But it supports your memory, and the closing documents support the fact that your money went into that property. If the house was sold and you were deliberately not informed or repaid, there may be claims worth exploring. Unjust enrichment, possible fraud, depending on what was said and done. We'd need more. What kind of more? The sale documents. Closing statement. Distribution of proceeds. Bank trail. Any communications where Caleb or Vanessa discussed your contribution, repayment, or treated the money as anything other than a gift. Evelyn nodded. I saved texts. Good. Keep saving them. Then Martin turned to the property filing on Evelyn's own house. His expression changed as he read the partial document she had printed. This is sloppy, he said. Sloppy how? Incomplete notary section. Electronic signature without proper authentication attached. It may get rejected outright, but the concern is intent. Why would Vanessa be requesting authority to communicate about your property unless she planned to do something with that authority? Evelyn's fingers curled around her purse strap. She said they needed to know their options. Martin looked up sharply. Their options? That's what she said. For the first time that morning, Martin's calm cracked slightly. Evelyn, your house is not one of their options. The sentence settled over the room. Evelyn swallowed hard. I know. Do you? She looked down at her hands. They were older than she felt. Veined, careful, the hands that had written checks, packed lunches when Caleb was grown and still struggling, folded Daniel's shirts after the funeral because she had not known what else to do. Hands that had given away $40,000 because love had sounded safer than paperwork. I'm trying to, she said. Martin softened. Then we help you try with documents. We amend your power of attorney today, remove Caleb as alternate. We update your will if needed. We send a letter to the county recorder stating you dispute any filing not personally verified by you. We also place written instructions with your bank and insurance agent. No third-party property inquiries without direct confirmation. Evelyn felt a tremor pass through her. It was not fear this time. It was grief. Each step was practical. Each step also admitted that her son could no longer be trusted with keys to her life. Do it, she said. Martin slid a legal pad toward himself. There's one more thing. I pulled the public property record for Caleb's house this morning. Evelyn looked up. It did sell, he said. Price confirmed at $620,000. Sale recorded 2 weeks ago, not last Friday. Evelyn frowned. They said it closed last Friday. It was recorded earlier than that. The closing may have happened before they admitted, and the mailing address for the seller proceeds notice was not Caleb's old house. Her mouth went dry. Where was it sent? Martin turned the page slowly to a private mailbox in Cincinnati under the name Vanguard Retail Strategies. Evelyn stared at the words until they blurred. Vanessa's business did not have a real office, but it had a mailbox ready before the house was sold. Evelyn did not speak for several seconds. The words on Martin's page sat between them like a receipt from a life she had not agreed to fund. Vanguard Retail Strategies, a private mailbox in Cincinnati, set up before Caleb's house sale became public record, before the suitcases, before Vanessa stood in Evelyn's kitchen and acted as if everything had happened too fast for honesty. How long before? Evelyn asked. Martin checked the printout again. The mailbox appears on the forwarding information attached to the seller records. That doesn't tell us when it was opened, only that it was active when the closing documents were processed. But it means this address wasn't created after they realized they had nowhere to go. Evelyn understood. They had a plan, they had a mailing address. Martin was careful that way. He would not call something fraud until the evidence earned the word. Evelyn appreciated that, even while part of her wanted someone to say plainly that she had been betrayed. Can we find out where the money went? She asked. Not without cooperation, discovery, or bank records we don't have yet. But we can begin with public records, business filings, and a demand letter. If Vanessa claims the proceeds went into a legitimate business, then that business should have at least some trace. Registration, tax identification, vendor contracts, leases, invoices, something. And if there isn't anything, then her explanation becomes weaker. Evelyn looked down at her hands. The anger she had felt earlier had settled into something quieter and more useful. She no longer wanted to scream. She wanted answers. Screaming could be denied, documents could not. Martin pushed a yellow legal pad toward her. Write down every business name Vanessa has ever used, even ones that sounded informal. Also any banks, apps, accountants, consultants, or vendors she mentioned. Evelyn almost laughed. She talked big, Martin, not specific. Big talk still leaves crumbs, so Evelyn wrote Vanguard Retail Strategies, Retail Growth Consulting, Boutique Strategy, something about brand acceleration. She wrote down Cincinnati because the mailbox was there. She wrote down the transfer deadline text. She wrote down Vanessa's refusal to identify the sender. Martin watched without interrupting. When she finished, he copied the list and handed the original back. You're going to keep a timeline from now on. Dates, times, who said what documents exist. Not feelings, facts. Feelings matter, but facts travel better in court. Evelyn nodded. She had spent years swallowing feelings to keep peace. Facts felt cleaner. Before she left, Martin had her sign new documents removing Caleb as alternate power of attorney. Ruth remained first choice, and Martin's office would hold a sealed copy. Evelyn also signed a letter instructing the county recorder to reject unverified filings connected to her property unless she appeared in person or confirmed through Martin's office. It felt extreme until she remembered Vanessa's palm against her face. Outside Martin's building, Evelyn sat in her car before starting the engine. The tote bag beside her was lighter now, but she felt heavier. Removing Caleb from legal authority over her life had been necessary. It also felt like admitting something she had not wanted to say out loud. Her son was no longer safe with her vulnerability. By the time she returned home, her cheek had faded from bright red to a dull ache. Mrs. Alvarez was watering plants across the street. She looked up when Evelyn pulled into the driveway, hesitated, then crossed over carefully. "I didn't want to intrude," Mrs. Alvarez said. "But are you all right?" Evelyn almost gave the old answer. "Fine." It rose automatically. Instead, she said, "No, but I'm handling it." Mrs. Alvarez's expression softened. "I saw enough yesterday to know you shouldn't be alone with them again." Evelyn felt a small shock of gratitude. "Thank you. If you need a witness statement later, I'll give one." Evelyn had not asked. She had not needed to. For the first time in days, someone offered help without asking what they could take in return. Inside, Evelyn locked the door and sat at the kitchen table with her laptop. She searched Vanguard Retail Strategies through the Ohio Secretary of State's business database. No exact match. She tried partial matches. Vanguard Retail, Retail Strategies LLC, VRS Consulting, nothing connected to Vanessa Harper. Nothing connected to Caleb. She searched Cincinnati private mailbox locations and found several possibilities near downtown. Too many to be useful. Then she searched Vanessa's name with the business name. Social media pages appeared first, not official company pages, personal posts, Vanessa smiling in restaurants, Vanessa at a hotel lobby with marble floors, Vanessa holding a glass of champagne in a rooftop bar, captioned, "Building the future one bold move at a time." Evelyn's stomach tightened. The dates mattered. She clicked through slowly, checking each post. The first burst of luxury photos began around the same week the house sale appeared in public records. New clothes, a leased luxury SUV in the background of one photo, a tagged business dinner in Cincinnati, another post with shopping bags on a hotel bed and a caption about investing in the image your future deserves. Evelyn took screenshots, everyone. Full page, date visible, caption visible, tags visible. She saved them into a folder on her desktop labeled Vanguard Timeline, then copied them to a flash drive she kept in the fireproof box. None of it proved where the $620,000 had gone. She knew that. People could take photos anywhere. They could borrow cars.
They should saturate.
But it answered one question. Vanessa had not been living like someone waiting for funds to clear. She had been spending like someone racing a deadline. Evelyn's phone buzzed at 4:42. A text from Caleb. "Mom, please don't involve lawyers. Vanessa says the county filing was a misunderstanding from a property research service. She was trying to see if your house could qualify for a temporary home equity arrangement that might help all of us. She didn't mean harm. Please call me." Evelyn stared at the message until the words stopped blurring. A temporary home equity arrangement. Her house. Her paid-off house. She forwarded the text to Martin without replying. Then she added it to the timeline, word for word. A minute later, Martin responded. "Do not respond. This is important. Save all messages." Evelyn placed the phone face down and stood up. Her kitchen suddenly felt different, not because anything had changed, but because she now understood the shape of the threat. Vanessa had not only wanted a room, she had been looking at Evelyn's house as available capital, a cushion, a solution, a thing to be unlocked. At 6:15, an email arrived from the County Fraud Review Department confirming the property authorization had been rejected pending identity verification. Evelyn read the email twice and printed it. That was one door closed. But another message arrived before the printer finished. It came from an address she did not recognize, with no greeting and no signature. "Ask Vanessa who Marcus Chen is before you let her touch another dollar." Evelyn read the email 3 times. The message contained only one sentence, no greeting, no explanation, no signature, just a name. "Ask Vanessa who Marcus Chen is before you let her touch another dollar." She checked the sender address. It was a free email account made up of random letters and numbers. Nothing identifiable, no previous messages, no attached files. Her first instinct was to dismiss it. The second was harder to ignore. The timing bothered her. Whoever sent it knew enough about Vanessa to connect her with money. They also seemed to know that Evelyn was already questioning where the house proceeds had gone. She took a screenshot, saved the email as a PDF, and forwarded both to Martin. Then she sat quietly at the kitchen table. The name meant nothing to her. But names rarely appeared out of nowhere. The next morning, Martin called before 9. "I received the email," he said. "What do you think? I think anonymous tips aren't evidence. But they can point toward evidence. So you think I should look? I think you should be careful. Don't contact anyone directly. Don't accuse anyone. But if the name appears in public records or connects to financial activity, that's different. Evelyn appreciated the answer. It wasn't permission to chase rumors. It was permission to verify facts. After hanging up, she opened her laptop. Marcus Chen, the first search produced hundreds of results. Business owners, attorneys, professors, real estate agents. Nothing stood out. Then she added Cincinnati. The list narrowed. One result caught her attention. Marcus Chen, managing partner of Chen Growth Ventures, a small consulting and investment company based in Cincinnati. Evelyn clicked. The website was polished. Professional photographs, corporate language, growth strategy, brand expansion, retail consulting. The same phrase Vanessa had repeated for months. Evelyn's pulse quickened. It still proved nothing. Thousands of people worked in consulting. But she kept reading. The firm's social media page displayed photos from networking events and business conferences. She clicked through them one by one, then she stopped. A photograph from 7 months earlier showed a conference reception in Chicago. A dozen people stood around cocktail tables. Near the center stood Marcus Chen. Beside him stood Vanessa, not in the background, not accidentally captured, standing shoulder to shoulder and smiling directly at the camera. The caption identified both attendees. Evelyn stared at the image. Vanessa had never mentioned attending a Chicago conference. She had never mentioned Marcus Chen, yet there they were. She saved the image. Then she saved 3 more from different events. The dates stretched over months, always business settings, always together, nothing inappropriate, nothing illegal, but enough to establish a connection, enough to prove Vanessa knew him, enough to raise a new question. Why had someone anonymously directed Evelyn to his name? Around noon, her phone rang. Caleb. She considered letting it go to voicemail. Instead, she answered, "Mom." His voice sounded tired. "What do you need, Caleb?" There was a long pause. "You haven't responded to any of my messages. I've been busy. With lawyers, yes." Another silence. "I wish you'd talk to me first." Evelyn almost laughed. For weeks, she had been the last person informed about everything. The house sale, the missing money, the supposed business, the attempt involving her property. Now he wanted communication. "Talk about what?" she asked calmly. "Vanessa says you're assuming the worst." "Am I?" "She was trying to help us. By researching ways to use my home as collateral without telling me. That isn't what happened." "Then explain what happened." He didn't. The silence stretched long enough to become its own answer. Finally, he said, "You're making everything harder." The words landed harder than he probably intended. Not because they were cruel, because they were familiar. For years, whenever conflict appeared, Caleb had measured events by how difficult they were for him, not by whether they were right, not by whether they hurt someone, only by whether they disrupted his comfort. Evelyn felt something shift inside her, a final piece settling into place. "I didn't create this situation," she said quietly. "No, but I didn't sell your house, Mom. I didn't spend $620,000. That's not fair." "No, it isn't." The conversation ended shortly afterward. Neither of them sounded satisfied. But for the first time, Evelyn noticed something important. Caleb wasn't defending facts anymore. He was defending Vanessa. There was a difference. That afternoon, she visited Ruth. Her older sister listened carefully while Evelyn explained everything, including the anonymous email. Ruth frowned. "Do you think they're involved?" "I don't know." "Then don't jump ahead." "I won't. You've spent your whole life giving people the benefit of the doubt." Ruth reached across the table. "Maybe now it's time to give yourself the benefit of the doubt." The words stayed with Evelyn after she left. Back home, she organized documents until evening. Every screenshot, every text, every email, every record connected to the house. She scanned older paperwork from when she had contributed the $40,000 toward Caleb's down payment years earlier. While sorting through folders, she noticed something she had overlooked before. A series of emails from nearly 18 months ago. Most were harmless, discussions about refinancing options, interest rates, home equity estimates. At the time, she had barely paid attention. Caleb had asked general questions. Vanessa had occasionally copied her on messages, nothing unusual, until she opened one specific email chain. The thread included a mortgage broker, Vanessa, Caleb, and an attachment. The attachment itself was missing. But the subject line remained, property leverage scenarios. Evelyn read the exchange slowly. The broker had outlined several financing possibilities based on future equity growth. Normal information, nothing improper, then Vanessa replied. "Thanks. We may also explore family-owned property opportunities if timing aligns." Family-owned property opportunities. The phrase sat heavily in Evelyn's chest. The email was 18 months old, long before the house sale, long before the business story, long before the suitcases appeared in her driveway. She printed the thread immediately. Then she highlighted the sentence. For the first time, a possibility emerged that frightened her more than the missing money. Maybe the house sale hadn't created their interest in her property. Maybe her property had always been part of the plan. Her phone buzzed. A new text from an unfamiliar number. She expected spam. Instead, she found a photograph. Just a photograph. No message, no explanation. The image showed Vanessa sitting across from Marcus Chen inside what appeared to be a hotel restaurant. Both were looking down at documents spread across the table. A timestamp sat in the corner of the image. The date was 3 weeks before Caleb's house was listed for sale. Evelyn's stomach tightened. Seconds later, another message arrived from the same unknown number. This time there were words. Check the sale timeline. The house wasn't the first asset they planned to use. Evelyn did not sleep much that night. The anonymous photograph stayed on her mind long after she turned off the lights. The image itself proved very little. Two adults sitting across from each other with documents was not evidence of wrongdoing. But the timing mattered. 3 weeks before Caleb's house hit the market, Vanessa had been meeting privately with a man she had never mentioned, and someone wanted Evelyn to know. By sunrise, she had already printed the photograph, saved multiple copies, and added it to the growing folder Martin had helped her organize. When his office opened, she called. Martin listened quietly as she described the new message and the old email mentioning family-owned property opportunities. When she finished, he was silent for several seconds. "What are you thinking?" Evelyn asked. "I'm thinking this is starting to look less like bad financial judgment and more like planning." The words settled heavily in her chest. Planning, not mistakes, not accidents. Planning, but we still don't know what the plan was, Martin continued. And assumptions can be dangerous. I know. Let's stick to documents. That was exactly what Evelyn intended to do. Later that morning, Martin requested additional public records connected to the house sale. Most information would take time to obtain. Some documents were already available. By afternoon, he called back. "I found something interesting." Evelyn sat up straighter. "What?" "The house was listed for sale nearly 6 weeks before the closing date. That sounds normal. It is. What isn't normal is the timing of several financial applications submitted around the same period." Her stomach tightened. "What kind of applications?" "I can't see the full contents yet. But there are indications that Vanessa was applying for business-related financing before the house proceeds were available." Evelyn frowned. "Using expected sale proceeds? Possibly. And if the sale failed? Then she'd have had a problem." After hanging up, Evelyn walked slowly through her house. For years, she had believed that responsibility and maturity arrived automatically with age. Now she understood how wrong that assumption could be. Adults could still chase fantasies. Adults could still gamble with money that wasn't truly theirs. Adults could still convince themselves that consequences would never arrive. Her phone vibrated. A text from Caleb. "Can we meet?" Nothing more, no apology, no explanation. Just 4 words. She stared at the screen for nearly a minute, then she replied. "Tomorrow, coffee shop on Main Street, noon." His response came almost immediately. "Thank you." The next day, Caleb arrived 10 minutes late. He looked older than he had a month earlier. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. His clothes looked wrinkled. His confidence seemed gone. Evelyn noticed all of it. She also noticed he was alone. Vanessa wasn't there. That fact mattered. They ordered coffee and sat across from each other. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Caleb exhaled. "Things are bad." Evelyn waited. "The business isn't working." "What business?" He looked away. The reaction answered the question. "There isn't one," Evelyn said quietly. "I thought there was." "You thought?" His shoulders sagged. Vanessa always handled it. The answer frustrated her more than she expected. Not because it was dishonest, because it was weak. For months, he had repeated Vanessa's explanations without ever verifying them. He had trusted blindly, just as Evelyn once trusted him. "How much did you actually know?" she asked. "Not enough." "That's not an answer." Caleb rubbed his forehead. "I knew she was working with investors. Did you ever see contracts?" "No." "Financial statements?" "No." "Business accounts?" "No." Each answer made him smaller. Each answer deepened Evelyn's disappointment. He wasn't describing partnership. He was describing surrender. Eventually, he looked up. "I think I made a mistake." The words should have felt satisfying. Instead, they felt late. Very late. Evelyn stirred her coffee slowly. "A mistake is forgetting to lock a door," she said. "Selling your house and handing over control of $620,000 is something else." Caleb flinched. For a moment, she almost softened. Then she remembered the weeks of pressure, the lies, the secrecy, the conversations that had happened without her knowledge. No one forced you to stop asking questions, she said. He lowered his eyes again. When the meeting ended, neither felt better. But Evelyn walked away understanding something important. The united front between Caleb and Vanessa was beginning to crack. That evening, another development arrived. Martin called. His voice carried a tension she had learned to recognize. What happened? I received documents connected to one of the financing inquiries. Evelyn's pulse quickened. And? The application references expected future collateral. What collateral? That's the problem. Martin paused. The description is vague. How vague? It doesn't identify a specific property. Then why does it matter? Because of the language. Evelyn waited. Martin continued carefully. It references a potential residential asset owned by an immediate family member. The room suddenly felt colder. My house! Without my permission? We don't know yet. The lawyer's caution irritated her, not because he was wrong, because she desperately wanted certainty. Instead, she had fragments, pieces, hints, enough to create fear, not enough to prove intent. After ending the call, she walked directly to the small, fur-proof safe in her bedroom closet. Inside sat every important document she owned: property records, insurance papers, retirement account information, her will, power of attorney forms, bank records. She checked every folder carefully. Nothing appeared missing. Still, she spent the next 2 hours making digital copies. Every page was scanned. Every file was backed up. Every password was changed. When she finally finished, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: control. Not complete control, but enough to breathe, enough to think. Around 10 that night, her landline rang. Very few people used that number anymore. Evelyn answered cautiously. Hello? For several seconds there was only silence. Then a woman's voice spoke. Not Vanessa, not anyone she recognized. I'm sorry to call like this. Evelyn sat upright. Who is this? I can't tell you. Then why are you calling? Another pause. The woman sounded nervous, as if she regretted dialing. Because you're asking questions nobody asked soon enough. Evelyn's heart began to pound. Who are you? I worked with someone involved. Involved with what? The financing. The woman's voice dropped lower. Your daughter-in-law wasn't just planning to use house sale money. Evelyn gripped the phone tighter. What are you talking about? I saw paperwork. What paperwork? I shouldn't even be calling. The woman sounded frightened now, truly frightened. Then why call? Because when I saw your name, I realized you had no idea. Evelyn stood from her chair. What name? Yours. The woman inhaled shakily. It appeared more than once. Evelyn felt her stomach drop. Where? Another long silence followed. Then the answer came. On documents prepared months before the house was ever sold. The line went dead. Evelyn remained frozen in the middle of her living room. Slowly she lowered the receiver. Months before the sale. Not weeks, not days, months. And somehow her name had already been appearing on paperwork connected to plans she knew nothing about. For the first time, Evelyn began to suspect that the suitcases in her driveway had never been the beginning of the story. They might have been the final stage of a scheme that had started long before Caleb ever sold his house. Evelyn stood in the center of her living room with the dead phone still in her hand. The woman's warning echoed in the quiet house. Her name had appeared on documents months before Caleb sold his house. Not on one document, more than once. That detail mattered. A mistake happened once. A misunderstanding had soft edges. Repetition looked like intent. She did not call Caleb. She did not call Vanessa. Instead, she walked to the kitchen, opened the timeline file on her laptop, and wrote down the exact time of the call, the phone number, the words she remembered, and the silence afterward. Then she checked her caller ID and photographed the number on the landline display. It might lead nowhere. It might be a prepaid phone or an office lines or someone too afraid to speak again. But she had learned not to decide what evidence mattered before saving it. At 8:12 the next morning, she called Martin. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he asked for the number and the exact words again. She gave both. He repeated them back to her slowly. Documents prepared months before the house sale, he said. Yes, and she said your name appeared more than once. Yes, Martin exhaled. Then we need to move faster. Evelyn sat straighter. Faster how? I'm sending a preservation letter today to Vanessa and Caleb. It will instruct them not to destroy records connected to the house sale, business financing, your property, or any documents bearing your name. It doesn't prove anything, but it puts them on notice. What if that makes them angry? It probably will. Evelyn looked toward her front door, now double-locked even in daylight. Good. The word surprised both of them. Martin was quiet for a beat, then said, Anger is not a strategy, Evelyn, I know, but neither is fear. That afternoon, Martin emailed her a copy of the letter before it went out. Evelyn read every line carefully. It was formal, dry, and powerful in a way shouting never was. It named the disputed property filing. It referenced the police incident. It demanded preservation of communications, bank records, business records, financing applications, signatures, drafts, emails, texts, and documents involving Evelyn Harper or any property owned by her. Seeing her own name there made her stomach twist. Not as a mother, not as a widow. As a person whose rights had to be formally defended from her own son's household. By evening, Caleb called 5 times. Evelyn did not answer. Then came the texts. "Mom, why did I just get a legal letter? What are you accusing me of? Vanessa is furious. Please pick up. This is getting out of hand." Evelyn saved every message. Then she placed the phone face down and made herself tea. Her hands shook only a little this time. At 7:03, Caleb left a voicemail. She played it once on speaker while recording it with her tablet. "Mom, I don't understand what you're doing. Vanessa says this letter could damage her financing. She says if her business collapses because of you, we'll lose everything. I know you're hurt, but you're treating us like criminals. I didn't know about your property being listed anywhere. I swear, but you have to stop before this ruins all of us." Evelyn saved the recording. The phrase stayed with her. Before this ruins all of us. Not before someone hurts you again. Not before we find out what happened. Not before Vanessa explains the documents. Caleb still spoke as if the danger was Evelyn's reaction, not the conduct that caused it. The next morning, someone knocked at her door. Evelyn checked the peephole before moving the chain. Caleb stood on the porch alone, holding a manila envelope. His hair was damp from rain and his expression looked strained, almost desperate. She opened the door only as far as the chain allowed. "You shouldn't be here without asking first." His face fell. "I know, I'm sorry. I just need you to see something." "What?" He lifted the envelope. "Documents. I found them in Vanessa's laptop bag." Evelyn's grip tightened on the door frame. "Does she know you have them?" No, that single word changed the air between them. Evelyn did not remove the chain, put the envelope through. Caleb looked hurt, but he obeyed. He slid the envelope carefully through the gap. Evelyn picked it up and held it against her chest. "Mom, please. I'm trying. I hope you are. Can I come in?" She looked at him for a long moment. Rainwater dripped from his jacket onto the porch boards. Once she would have pulled him inside and handed him a towel. Now she saw a grown man who had stood too close to lies for too long. "No," she said. His eyes reddened. "I didn't know she had these. What are they?" "I don't fully understand. Drafts, I think. Application paperwork. Notes. One page has your address. Another has Daniel's name." Evelyn went very still. Daniel. Her late husband's name had no reason to appear in Vanessa's laptop bag. She looked down at the envelope as if it might split open by itself. "Who else has seen this?" "No one. I brought it straight here." "Why?" Caleb swallowed. "Because I'm scared." It was the first honest thing he had said in days. Evelyn kept her voice steady. "Go to Martin's office. Right now. Tell the receptionist you brought documents from me and that he should copy them while you are present. Do not take them back to Vanessa. Do not photograph anything else. Do not delete anything. Do not confront her." Caleb blinked. "You want me to take them to your lawyer?" "Yes, but I brought them to you. And I'm telling you what to do if you're serious about helping." For a moment, he looked like he might argue, then his shoulders dropped. "Okay." Evelyn closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it with the envelope in her hands. She wanted to rip it open. Every part of her wanted to see what Daniel's name was doing there, but she heard Martin's voice in her mind. Facts travel better when handled carefully. She placed the envelope into a grocery bag, sealed it, and wrote the time and date across the front. Then she drove to Martin's office herself, following Caleb's SUV from 3 car lengths behind. Martin met them in the conference room. He put on reading glasses before opening the envelope. Caleb sat at the far end of the table, pale and silent. Evelyn sat beside Martin, her hands folded so tightly her knuckles hurt. The first pages were printed financing worksheets. The language was dense, filled with projected revenue, collateral, estimated equity, and personal guarantee options. Some pages referenced Vanguard retail strategies, others listed Vanessa as principal. Then Martin reached the page with Evelyn's address. His expression hardened. "This is a draft borrower asset worksheet," he said. "Not final, not submitted, at least not based on this copy. But your house is listed here as potential collateral." Evelyn felt Caleb look at her. She did not look back. Martin turned another page. This one had Daniel Harper's name at the top, under a section labeled Prior Owner Estate Connection. "That makes no sense," Evelyn said. "Daniel died years ago. The house is mine." Martin scanned the rest of the page, his mouth tightened. "What?" Caleb asked. Martin did not answer right away. He placed the page flat on the table and turned it so Evelyn could see. Near the bottom was a handwritten note. Widow may qualify for asset-backed bridge solution if son obtains consent or PO. Evelyn's vision narrowed around those last 3 letters, power of attorney. Caleb whispered, "I didn't write that." Evelyn finally looked at him. His face had gone white. Martin picked up the next page. It was worse. A blank signature form had been partially filled with Evelyn's full legal name, date of birth, address, and the last 4 digits of her social security number. Evelyn stopped breathing. Caleb stood so quickly his chair scraped the floor. How did she get that? Martin looked at him, eyes sharp. That is exactly what we need to find out. Evelyn stared at the form, at the private pieces of herself arranged on paper for someone else's convenience. Then Martin turned the final page. Across the top, in Vanessa's neat handwriting, were 3 words circled twice. Get Evelyn approved. Evelyn stared at the words until they seemed to detach from the page. Get Evelyn approved. Not ask Evelyn, not explain to Evelyn, not obtain Evelyn's consent, approved. As if she were an obstacle in a process, a box to check. A widow with a paid-off house and enough private information to make someone else's plan possible. Caleb remained standing at the end of the conference table. His hands were braced against the chair back, and his face had gone the color of paper. "I didn't know," he said again, but this time the words sounded less like a defense and more like a man begging the room to believe he still recognized himself. Evelyn did not answer him immediately. She reached for the document with her name and the last 4 digits of her social security number. Martin gently placed his hand over the page before she touched it. "Let me make certified copies first," he said. "We need to preserve the order these came in." That small correction steadied her. Procedure mattered. Anger could come later. Right now she needed the evidence to remain clean. She pulled her hand back and folded it in her lap. Caleb looked at Martin. Could this be identity theft? It could be attempted misuse of personal information, Martin said carefully. It could be preparation for a loan application. It could be part of something abandoned before submission. We don't know yet. What we do know is that Evelyn's private information appears on documents she didn't authorize, alongside language about consent or power of attorney. Caleb sat down slowly. "She told me she was just trying to structure financing. Using my mother's house," Evelyn asked. He flinched at the word mother. Good. She wanted it to hurt. Not because she wanted revenge, but because some pain was earned. She said there were ways to keep everything temporary, he said, like a bridge loan. She said if the business took off fast enough, no one would be hurt. No one, Evelyn repeated. Caleb covered his face with both hands. "I didn't understand the details." "That was the problem," she said. "You didn't want details. Details would have required you to stop her." Martin slid the papers into a clear evidence sleeve. "Caleb, I need you to answer something plainly. Did you ever give Vanessa access to Evelyn's date of birth, social security number, bank information, or estate documents?" "No. Think carefully." Caleb lowered his hands. "I mean, maybe some things were in old tax files at our house. Mom helped me with forms years ago. I had copies of her cashier's check records. Maybe her birthday was in my contacts, but not her social security number." Evelyn closed her eyes briefly. She remembered helping him when he refinanced 2 years before. She had emailed him a copy of the original down payment receipt because the lender had asked about source of funds. Had that file contained more than she realized? Had she trusted one ordinary request and opened a door? "Did Vanessa handle your email?" Martin asked. Caleb hesitated. Evelyn opened her eyes. "Sometimes," he admitted, "when I was busy. She'd forward documents or fill out forms for me." Martin wrote that down. "Did she know your passwords?" Caleb looked ashamed. "Yes." A quiet sound left Evelyn's chest before she could stop it. It was not a sob. It was smaller than that, almost a laugh without humor. She had spent a day changing her own passwords while her son had handed his life to Vanessa because convenience had felt easier than caution. Martin closed the folder. "I'm going to prepare 2 things. First, a formal notice to any financing entities we can identify that Evelyn did not authorize use of her personal information or property. Second, a civil demand for the return of her down payment contribution and preservation of proceeds records. Caleb, if you intend to cooperate, you should retain your own attorney." Caleb looked stunned. "My own attorney?" "Yes, I represent Evelyn, not you." The sentence created a silence more painful than shouting. Evelyn watched Caleb absorb it. For the first time, the legal line between them became real. He was her son, but in this room he was also a person connected to the documents that threatened her home. Love did not erase conflict. Blood did not create representation. Caleb nodded slowly. Okay, Martin turned to Evelyn. I also recommend a credit freeze. She straightened. Today? Today. All 3 major bureaus. I'll have my assistant print instructions. You should also request your credit reports and check for inquiries. Caleb whispered, God. Evelyn did not comfort him. She wrote credit freeze on her notepad, underlined it, and added bank alert already done. Her phone buzzed while Martin's assistant was making copies. The screen showed Vanessa. Evelyn did not answer. A voicemail appeared seconds later. Martin said, play it on speaker. Evelyn did. Vanessa's voice filled the conference room, controlled but shaking with anger. Evelyn, I know Caleb took papers from my bag. That is theft. If you or your lawyer try to use private business documents, I will report both of you. You have no idea what you're interfering with. Marcus has already warned me that your little tantrum could trigger serious financial damage. If that happens, Caleb will know exactly who destroyed his future. Call me before this gets uglier. The message ended. No one moved. Caleb stared at the phone. Marcus, Evelyn looked at him. You know the name? He swallowed. She said he was an investor. An investor in a business that isn't registered? I don't know. His voice cracked. I don't know anymore. Martin asked Evelyn to forward the voicemail immediately. She did. Then he wrote Marcus Chen on the legal pad and circled it. That voicemail helps, he said. How? Caleb asked. It connects Marcus Chen to the financing pressure and Vanessa's threat. It doesn't prove wrongdoing, but it gives us a person and a context. Evelyn stared at the table. She said Caleb took papers from her bag. Caleb looked up quickly. I did, but I didn't break anything. I saw your name when she left the bag open in the motel room. I looked. I shouldn't have, but I did. Motel room, Evelyn said. He flushed. We've been staying near the interstate. For the first time all morning, Evelyn felt the tug of pity. Her son, who had owned a house weeks earlier, now sitting in a motel with a wife whose bag contained documents about using his mother's property. The pity did not erase anything, but it reminded her that consequences could be tragic even when deserved. Martin rose. Caleb, go home or wherever you're staying. Do not confront Vanessa alone. Do not give her access to the documents. Do not discuss Evelyn's legal strategy. If she asks, tell her the documents are with counsel. Caleb nodded, looking defeated. Evelyn stood too. He stepped toward her, then stopped himself. Mom, she waited, I'm sorry. The words were small, maybe sincere, maybe too late to mean much. Evelyn held his gaze. Then start telling the truth before someone else has to drag it out of you. He looked down. I will. She wanted to believe that. She was not ready to. By the time Evelyn returned home, her body felt hollow. She followed Martin's instructions anyway. She froze her credit. She requested reports. She printed confirmation pages and placed them in the folder. Each step felt like boarding up a window before a storm. At 5:38 ppm, her email chimed. One of the credit bureaus had already generated a report. Evelyn opened it with cautious relief at first. No new loan in her name, no mortgage inquiry from that week, no credit card she did not recognize. Then she saw a hard inquiry from 8 months earlier. The company name was unfamiliar. She copied it into a search engine. A lending platform appeared, specializing in asset-backed business funding. Her stomach went cold. The inquiry had been made using her name and home address, 8 months before Caleb sold his house. Evelyn sat motionless in front of her laptop while the credit report remained open on the screen. 8 months. The inquiry had happened 8 months earlier, not last week, not after the house sale, not after Vanessa and Caleb arrived with suitcases on her driveway, 8 months before any of that, which meant one thing. Whatever Vanessa had been planning, it had not started when the money disappeared. It had started long before anyone knew there was a problem. Evelyn immediately printed the report. Then she saved digital copies to 2 separate flash drives and uploaded an encrypted backup to cloud storage. Martin had emphasized documentation so many times that the routine already felt automatic. Protect the evidence first. Ask questions second. She highlighted the inquiry date with a yellow marker and wrote a note beside it. Before house sale, before business failure, possible planning stage. The next morning, she emailed Martin the report before breakfast. His reply came less than 20 minutes later. Do not contact lender directly yet. Let me make formal requests. That response worried her more than she expected. Martin rarely sounded alarmed. Careful, yes. Methodical, always. But this email felt different. She spent the morning organizing records. The original cashier's check for Caleb's down payment, bank statements, property tax records, copies of messages, notes from meetings. Everything went into labeled folders. For years she had thought of paperwork as something tedious. Now it felt like armor. At noon her phone rang. Caleb. She considered ignoring it. Then she answered. Mom. His voice sounded exhausted. What's wrong? A long pause followed. Vanessa left. Evelyn leaned back slowly. Left where? I don't know. That answer immediately raised more questions. Caleb explained that he had returned to the motel after meeting with Martin. Vanessa had been gone. Most of her clothing was gone too. Several bags were missing. Her phone went directly to voicemail. The motel manager confirmed she had left earlier that afternoon, alone, without telling him. Evelyn listened quietly. Part of her felt sympathy. Another part remembered years of excuses. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "I don't know. At least he was honest, for once. I think she's hiding something bigger than I realized." Evelyn stared through the kitchen window. The statement would have meant more months earlier. Now it simply felt late. "Then help find the truth," she said. "I am. Good." She ended the call before either of them could pretend things were normal. An hour later, Martin called. "I've been reviewing the inquiry. What did you find?" The lender specializes in short-term funding secured by assets. Evelyn's stomach tightened. "My house? Possibly. Can they tell you? Not without proper authorization and requests. But the timing concerns me." He paused. "There's something else." Evelyn grabbed her notebook. The inquiry wasn't the only thing. "What do you mean?" There were 2 associated entities listed in related public filings. Her pen stopped moving. "What entities?" "One was Vanessa's consulting company. That part wasn't surprising. The second was a holding company." Evelyn waited. Martin continued. "The registered manager is Marcus Chen." The name landed like a stone. Marcus again, the investor, the man from the voicemail, the man Vanessa seemed desperate to protect. "What kind of company?" Evelyn asked. "Asset acquisition." The words sounded harmless, yet somehow they felt dangerous. "What does that mean?" "It can mean many things. Real estate, equipment, debt purchases, investments, but people sometimes use separate entities to isolate risk." Evelyn understood enough to hear the warning hidden inside the explanation. A company created for transactions, a company connected to Marcus, a company somehow connected to Vanessa's financing attempts. Martin promised to continue digging. After the call ended, Evelyn sat quietly. For the first time, she felt the scope of the situation expanding beyond family dysfunction. This was no longer just about a reckless daughter-in-law spending money. There was structure, planning, organization, people. The realization chilled her. That evening, another unexpected call arrived. The number belonged to Rachel Dawson, a former neighbor from Caleb's subdivision. Evelyn hadn't spoken with her in months. "Rachel?" "Evelyn, I hope I'm not bothering you." "Not at all." Rachel sounded nervous. "I heard about Caleb and Vanessa losing the house. News traveled quickly, especially in suburban neighborhoods." "Yes." Rachel hesitated. "There was something I always thought was strange." Evelyn immediately reached for her notebook. "What?" "About a year ago, a man kept visiting." Her pulse quickened. "What man?" "I don't know his name." Rachel described someone in his 40s. Expensive vehicles, frequent visits during weekdays, never staying long, always meeting Vanessa. Not Caleb. Did Caleb know? "I assumed he did." Evelyn wrote everything down. Dates, descriptions, frequency, none of it proved anything. But it added another piece, another thread, another question. Before ending the call, Rachel mentioned one final detail. The visitor had once parked beside her mailbox while taking a business call. She remembered hearing his last name because he spelled it aloud, Chen. Evelyn thanked her and hung up. Marcus again. Every road seemed to circle back to him. By Thursday morning, Martin had arranged another meeting. This time, Caleb arrived first. He looked worse than before, unshaven, dark circles. A man finally running out of explanations. Martin entered carrying several folders. "I received preliminary responses." Evelyn straightened. "What kind of responses?" "Records requests." He sat down, nothing definitive yet. The lawyer opened one folder, but enough to establish a timeline. Evelyn watched carefully. Martin spread several documents across the table. Corporate registration records, business filings, public disclosures, dates highlighted in yellow. One date immediately caught her attention. 9 months earlier, 1 month before the credit inquiry. "What happened then?" she asked. Martin pointed. Vanessa's company opened a commercial account. Another document. 2 weeks later, Marcus Chen's holding company was added to a transaction involving funding discussions. Another document. Then came the inquiry using your information. The room grew silent. The sequence mattered because it showed progression, not chaos, not panic, planning. Caleb stared at the papers. "My God." Martin looked directly at him. "Your wife did not suddenly make bad decisions after the house sold." Caleb swallowed hard. "No, these steps began months earlier." Evelyn saw the truth finally reach him. Not completely, but enough. The collapse of their lives had not created the scheme. The scheme had helped create the collapse. The distinction mattered. A lot. The meeting continued for another hour. No single document solved the case, no dramatic confession appeared. But the timeline kept growing, and every new entry pushed the beginning farther back, months, nearly a year, perhaps longer. As they prepared to leave, Martin handed Evelyn a sealed envelope. "What is this? It arrived at my office this morning. From who?" No return address. Evelyn frowned. Martin's expression remained serious. "I think you should open it here." She carefully broke the seal. Inside was a photocopy. Nothing more. Just one page. A page containing part of a loan application. Her name appeared near the top. Her address appeared underneath. Then her eyes reached the signature section. The signature wasn't hers, but it looked terrifyingly close. Someone had practiced it. Many times. The room went completely silent. Evelyn kept staring at the photocopied signature while Martin carefully slid the page closer to himself. Caleb leaned forward. "That's not her signature." "No," Martin said calmly, "but whoever created it spent time studying her handwriting." Evelyn felt something cold settle in her chest. The forgery was not sloppy. It wasn't the kind of signature someone scribbled in a hurry. Certain letters curved exactly the way she wrote them. The spacing looked familiar. Even the slight upward angle at the end matched her natural habit. Someone had practiced, repeatedly. The realization felt deeply personal, not because of the document itself, because whoever had done this had spent time becoming her. Martin immediately scanned the page and saved copies. "Do not take this home yet," he said. "Why?" "I want to preserve the chain of custody." Caleb looked confused. Martin explained. "If this becomes evidence, I need records showing where it came from and who handled it." Evelyn nodded. The lawyer's caution made the situation feel more serious than ever. "Can we prove who signed it?" Caleb asked. "Not from a photocopy." Martin tapped the page. "But this tells us something important." "What?" The lender processed enough information to create an application file. Evelyn understood immediately. The forged signature wasn't the beginning. It was part of a larger process. Someone had submitted information. Someone had gathered documents. Someone had presented enough material to move the application forward. The forgery represented preparation, not improvisation. After the meeting ended, Martin asked Evelyn to stay behind. Caleb left first. For the first time in months, he looked genuinely frightened. Once the door closed, Martin lowered his voice. "There's another issue." Evelyn immediately felt her stomach tighten. "What now?" "The return address investigation." "The envelope?" He nodded. "We traced part of it, and the envelope was mailed from a private shipping center." That wasn't surprising. People who wanted anonymity often used third-party locations. "What does that tell us?" "Not much by itself." Martin opened another folder. "But security footage may exist." Evelyn blinked. "You can get that?" "Possibly." His expression remained careful. "Assuming the footage still exists." Hope flickered briefly inside her. For weeks, every clue had seemed incomplete. This was the first possibility of identifying someone directly. Martin continued. "There's something else I want you to do. Anything. I want you to make a complete inventory of every document you've ever shared with Vanessa." The request surprised her. "What kind of documents?" "Tax returns, property records, medical paperwork, insurance documents, bank correspondence, anything." Evelyn frowned. "That's years of information." "I know. Why?" Martin leaned back. "Because whoever submitted that application had access to more than a signature. The implication hit immediately. Personal information, social security details, financial records, property values. The application hadn't built itself. Someone had fed it information, and much of that information could only have come from inside the family. That evening, Evelyn spread folders across her dining room table. The process took hours. She created lists, photographed files, made notes. Gradually, a pattern began emerging, one that made her increasingly uncomfortable. Many documents had passed through Vanessa's hands during Evelyn's knee surgery recovery. Insurance claims, hospital billing forms, tax paperwork, mail. At the time, it had seemed harmless, helpful, even. Evelyn had been recovering from pain medication and limited mobility. Vanessa had offered assistance. Now those memories felt different. Not sinister exactly, but no longer innocent. Near midnight, she discovered something else, a missing folder. She knew it had existed. She remembered organizing it years ago. Property records, refinancing documents, old tax assessments. The folder wasn't in her filing cabinet, wasn't in storage, wasn't anywhere. At first, she assumed she had misplaced it. Then she remembered something. 3 years earlier, just after her surgery, Vanessa had volunteered to organize paperwork. At the time, Evelyn had been grateful. Now she wasn't sure. The next morning, she called Martin immediately. He listened carefully. "You never found the folder again?" "No." "Make a note of that." "Do you think it matters?" "I don't know." The answer frustrated her. But it was also honest. Too many pieces remained missing. Too many assumptions could still be wrong. After hanging up, Evelyn drove to her bank, not because Martin had asked, because she was tired of reacting. She wanted answers of her own. The branch manager, Denise Parker, had known her for years. After explaining her concerns, Evelyn requested a review of access history associated with several accounts. Nothing confidential beyond her own records. Nothing improper. Just information she legally had a right to see. Denise spent nearly an hour helping her. Most activity appeared normal. Then one detail stood out, an address change request. Temporary, 3 years earlier, during Evelyn's recovery period. Her heart immediately began pounding. The request had lasted only 6 weeks before being reversed. Long enough to redirect sensitive correspondence. Who submitted it? Evelyn asked. Denise shook her head. The record doesn't identify the individual. Can you tell whether it was online? No. Phone? No. The answer disappointed her, yet the discovery still mattered. Because she had never requested an address change. Not once. Denise printed the record. Evelyn thanked her and carefully placed the page inside her folder. Another piece. Another question. Another sign that someone had been moving quietly around her life while she was vulnerable. As she exited the bank, her phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, she would have ignored it. Instead, she answered. Silence greeted her, then a woman's voice. Stop digging. Evelyn froze. The voice sounded distorted. Electronic, artificially altered. Who is this? You already have more than enough. The call ended, just like that. No threat, no explanation, only a warning. For several seconds, Evelyn stood motionless beside her car, then anger slowly replaced fear. Whoever had called knew she was investigating. That meant pressure was building somewhere. People rarely tried to stop questions unless they feared answers. She immediately documented everything: time, duration, phone number, exact wording. Then she forwarded the information to Martin. His response arrived 10 minutes later. Do not delete anything. I am preserving records. For the first time in weeks, Evelyn felt something unexpected. Not helplessness, not grief, momentum. Someone was nervous. Someone was watching, which meant someone knew the truth was getting closer. That afternoon, Caleb arrived unannounced. He looked worse than ever. His shoulders slumped, his eyes hollow. Evelyn. He rarely called her by her first name. The habit instantly irritated her. What is it? He held out a stack of papers. I found these. She accepted them cautiously. Bank statements, business records, credit accounts, mostly Vanessa's. Where? In a storage unit. Evelyn looked up sharply. Storage unit. I didn't know it existed. That got her attention. Caleb explained that he had discovered recurring monthly payments hidden among old financial records. After locating the facility, he had used account information linked to their marriage records. Inside, he found boxes. Documents, business files, electronic drives, years of material. Did you bring everything? No, why not? His expression darkened. Because someone got there before me. A chill moved through Evelyn. What do you mean? The unit had been entered. When? I don't know. He rubbed his face. But several boxes were empty. The room felt suddenly smaller. What was missing? I don't know. The answer hung heavily between them, because it meant someone else knew about the storage unit. Someone else had access. Someone else was already moving pieces. Caleb pointed toward one statement near the bottom. I think you should look at this. Evelyn examined the page. A payment. Then another. Then another. Monthly transfers. Regular. Consistent. Always going to the same entity. Marcus Chen Holdings. The transfers stretched back almost 2 years. 2 years. Far longer than any of them had suspected. Far longer than the house crisis. Far longer than the failed investments Vanessa had claimed started everything. Evelyn slowly turned the page, then another, and another. The payments continued, month after month, a relationship hidden in plain sight, a financial connection nobody had known existed. At the very bottom of the final page sat a notation, small, easy to miss, yet impossible to ignore, account ending 7721, authorized signer V. Harper. Evelyn stared at the line. Her pulse thundered in her ears. Because Vanessa's legal name wasn't Vanessa Harper. It had never been Vanessa Harper. And for the first time, Evelyn realized someone else had been using her family name long before the money disappeared. Evelyn did not understand the line at first. Authorized signer, V. Harper. It should have meant Vanessa. It was supposed to mean Vanessa. That was the obvious answer, the easy one, the one her mind reached for and rejected almost immediately, because Vanessa had never legally changed her name. Evelyn remembered the wedding paperwork because she had helped Caleb find a missing certified copy when he and Vanessa applied for their first mortgage. Vanessa's legal name had remained Vanessa Lorne. She said it was professional branding. She said changing everything was too much trouble. She used Harper socially on Christmas cards and dinner reservations and social media captions, but not on legal forms. A bank statement naming V. Harper as authorized signer should not exist. Caleb stared at the line too. His breathing changed. That can't be right. Evelyn looked at him. Did she ever change her name? No, his voice was thin. She said she never wanted to deal with the paperwork. Then who is V. Harper? He didn't answer. For a moment, the room felt like it had tilted again. Every answer they found only opened a worse question. First the missing house proceeds, then her property, then Marcus Chen. Then the forged signature. Now an authorized signer using a name Vanessa had no legal right to use. Evelyn placed the page on the table and photographed it with her phone. Caleb watched her do it, and this time he did not ask why. Do you have more from the storage unit? She asked. Yes, in my car. Bring it in. He hesitated. Mom, some of it is messy, so is what she did. Caleb went out and returned with a cardboard box taped badly across the top. The edges were bent, one side crushed inward as if someone had searched it in a hurry. He set it on the dining table, and Evelyn had to force herself not to recoil. The box smelled faintly of dust, damp cardboard, and perfume. Inside were folders, loose receipts, printed emails, and a small black notebook. Evelyn reached for the notebook first, then stopped herself. She had learned by now to treat evidence like it mattered before she knew why. She took photos of the box from every angle, then of the contents as they lay. She wrote the time and date on a sheet of paper and placed it beside the box for reference. Only then did she begin sorting. Caleb sat across from her, silent and hollow-eyed. The first folder held copies of invoices for web design, branding consultations, and business coaching. Some seemed ordinary, others looked inflated. A 2-page invoice for market entry strategy charged $12,000 but listed no deliverables. Another invoice from Chen Growth Ventures referenced Phase 1 asset positioning. Evelyn circled that phrase with a sticky note instead of marking the original. Asset positioning. She hated how clean those words sounded. Like a brochure, like a business plan. Not like a widow's paid-off home being eyed as collateral. The second folder held bank printouts. Several accounts appeared to move money in circles. Transfers to Vanguard Retail Strategies. Transfers out to Marcus Chen Holdings. Payments to a luxury car service, a hotel chain, a private mailbox company. Some amounts were small, others were not. Then Evelyn found a page that made Caleb curse under his breath. A wire transfer. $58,000 from the closing proceeds account to Marcus Chen Holdings. Date, 2 days after the sale. Memo, consulting advance. Caleb stood and walked away from the table. One hand pressed to the back of his neck. She told me that money was locked for licensing, he said. Evelyn looked up. Licensing for what? I don't know. That answer had become unbearable. You keep saying that. He turned back, raw shame on his face. Because it's true. And that makes it worse, Caleb. Not better. He took the words without defending himself. That was new. Before he would have argued. He would have repeated Vanessa's phrases, softened them, wrapped them in excuses. Now he just stood there looking at the financial wreckage of his own trust. Evelyn continued sorting. At the bottom of the box, she found a sealed white envelope with Caleb's name written across it, not in Vanessa's elegant handwriting. This was blocky and rushed. He took it slowly when she handed it to him. Inside was a copy of a contract. He read the first page, then the second. His face changed as he reached the third. What is it? Evelyn asked. Caleb's voice came out flat. A personal guarantee. For what? A business line of credit. Evelyn's stomach tightened. Did you sign it? He turned the final page. His signature sat at the bottom. He stared at it. That's mine. You don't remember signing? I signed a lot of things when we were selling the house. Vanessa said they were closing documents, temporary authorizations, business paperwork she needed me to acknowledge. I didn't read all of them. Evelyn sat very still. There it was again. Not stupidity exactly. Not innocence either. A grown man signing what he did not read because someone else had trained him not to question. How much? She asked. He looked at the top of the page. His jaw tightened. 180,000. The number seemed to hang over the table. Evelyn thought of Caleb standing on her porch asking where he was supposed to sleep. She thought of Vanessa saying a hotel was too expensive. She thought of $620,000 vanishing into business language and Shadow's accounts while new debt quietly attached itself to Caleb's name. This is why she needed the transfer deadline, Evelyn said. Caleb looked at her. She wasn't just trying to move forward. She was trying to keep something from collapsing. He sat down slowly, still holding the contract. I think I'm ruined. The old mother in Evelyn wanted to reach across the table and tell him no, that there was a way out, that she would help, that she would fix what he could not face. Instead, she said, then you need a lawyer. His eyes lifted to hers. Martin said he doesn't represent me. He doesn't. Do you have someone I can call? The question was humble, almost childlike, though he was no child and she would not treat him like one. I can ask Martin for a referral, she said, but you have to tell that lawyer everything, not the version that makes you look innocent. Everything. He nodded once. I will. Evelyn wanted to believe him. She also knew belief was no longer enough, and you need to stop protecting Vanessa. I'm not. You are if you still choose silence when facts hurt. He looked down at the personal guarantee. I don't think I can protect her anymore. The quiet in his voice told Evelyn something had shifted. Caleb had lost faith, or at least lost the comfort of denial. Either way, Vanessa's hold over him had cracked. At 6:40, Caleb's phone buzzed on the table. He had left it face up this time. Vanessa. He looked at Evelyn, then answered on speaker. Where are you? Vanessa demanded. Caleb closed his eyes. At Mom's. You idiot. Evelyn felt the insult land, but Caleb did not flinch this time. Vanessa continued, voice low and fast. Do not give her anything else. Do you hear me? Marcus says if those documents get out, everything becomes impossible. You think your mother is helping you? She's burying you with me. Caleb looked at the box on the table. What did you sign me up for? A pause. Not long, but enough. What are you talking about? Vanessa asked. The line of credit, the guarantee, the transfers to Marcus. Her tone changed immediately. Softer. Controlled. Caleb, listen to me. You're confused. Your mother is twisting things because she wants to destroy our marriage. Evelyn reached for her own phone and began recording. Caleb saw. This time he did not stop her. I'm asking you a direct question, he said. What did you sign me up for? Vanessa's voice sharpened. A future. One you were too weak to build without me. The words cut through the room. Caleb's face went blank. Then Vanessa added, and if Evelyn thinks she can keep that house out of this, she's more naive than I thought. Evelyn's hand tightened around the phone. Caleb whispered, what does that mean? Vanessa laughed, once bitter and cold. It means your mother's name is already in more places than she knows. The line went dead. Evelyn saved the recording before either of them moved. Vanessa's last words remained in the room like smoke. Your mother's name is already in more places than she knows. Caleb stared at the dead phone in his hand. The anger had drained from him, leaving only shock. Evelyn saw the moment he stopped thinking like a husband, trying to defend his wife, and started thinking like a man whose own signature, credit, and family name had been turned into tools. Send me that call, she said. He looked up. The recording, Evelyn said. Send it to me, then send it to Martin. Caleb nodded quickly. His fingers fumbled, but he obeyed. A minute later, Evelyn's phone chimed with the audio file. She forwarded it to Martin with a note. Vanessa admits my name is in more places. Mentions Marcus. Threatens house exposure. Caleb sank into the chair across from her. What did she mean? Evelyn looked at the box of documents spread across the table. That's what we're going to find out. We? She paused. The word had come from him, but it had landed between them with history attached. We used to mean family. We used to mean trust. Now it meant something colder. Cooperation, documentation, mutual survival. You need your own lawyer, she said. Until then, you can help by preserving what you found. No more hiding things because you're ashamed. I'm not hiding anymore. Evelyn held his gaze. Then prove it. That night, Caleb went back to the motel. Evelyn did not invite him to stay. The decision hurt, but it was no longer a question. Vanessa knew too much about Evelyn's house, her private information, and her habits. Caleb had been careless enough to let that happen. He might be sorry now, but sorrow did not make him safe. After he left, Evelyn photographed every page again and placed the box in the locked hall closet. Then she sat at the kitchen table and opened the credit report. The hard inquiry from 8 months earlier stared back at her. She searched the lender's name again, this time digging past the homepage. The platform advertised bridge funding for small businesses, asset-backed loans, and expedited approvals using alternative collateral structures. The words sounded polished, but Evelyn had learned to distrust polished language. She printed the page, highlighted the phrase, and added it to the folder. At 9:30, Martin called. I listened to the recording, he said, and it's useful. Not enough by itself, but useful. Vanessa connects herself to Marcus and suggests your name appears on additional documents. That gives us a basis to expand inquiries. Can you find the places? I can try. Evelyn heard the caution in his voice. How long? Not overnight. But tomorrow I'm filing a civil complaint draft and seeking records through proper channels. We may also need to make a police supplement about the possible identity misuse. Evelyn touched the edge of the table. Do it. Are you sure? She thought of the slap. The county filing, the forged signature, Daniel's name on a worksheet, Caleb's debt, Vanessa's voice saying Evelyn's house wasn't safe from this. Yes, she said. I'm done waiting for them to explain. The next morning, Caleb called from an attorney's office. Martin had referred him to a lawyer named Andrea Walsh, who specialized in debt and financial fraud disputes. Evelyn did not join the call, but Caleb sent a short text afterward. Andrea says, I need to cooperate fully and stop speaking to Vanessa except through counsel. Evelyn stared at the message for a long time. Then she wrote back, good. It was not warm. It was not forgiveness, but it was the truth. By noon, Martin asked Evelyn to come in again. This time Ruth came with her. Evelyn had called her sister before leaving and asked plainly, will you sit with me? Ruth did not ask for details. She said yes. At Martin's office, the conference table looked different than it had the first time. More folders, more labels, more evidence. The timeline now stretched across several pages taped end to end. Martin tapped a new document. We received confirmation from the county. The property authorization was rejected. They flagged your parcel for manual verification. Evelyn let out a breath. One door closed. Then Martin tapped another page, but we also got a preliminary response from the lending platform connected to the credit inquiry. They won't release the full application without a subpoena or court order, but they acknowledged an inquiry was initiated under your name and address. Ruth muttered, initiated by who? Martin's mouth tightened. They did not disclose that yet. Evelyn leaned forward. Was the inquiry approved? No, it appears to have stalled at verification. That should have comforted her. Instead, it made her angry. Not because the attempt failed, but because failure had been the only thing protecting her. A missing verification step, a suspicious lender, a process glitch. Not family loyalty, not Caleb. Not Vanessa's conscience, Martin continued. The complaint will seek return of your down payment contribution, a full accounting of the house proceeds, damages tied to unauthorized use of personal information if supported, and injunctive relief preventing further use of your name or property. Ruth squeezed Evelyn's hand under the table. Evelyn looked at the draft. Her name stood at the top as plaintiff. Caleb and Vanessa's names stood below as defendants, though Martin had noted that claims against Caleb might be adjusted if his cooperation proved genuine. Seeing Caleb's name there nearly undid her. Martin noticed, we can still proceed carefully. Evelyn's throat tightened. Careful doesn't mean silent. No, he said. It doesn't. She signed the authorization for Martin to proceed. Her hand did not shake. That afternoon, Martin sent the civil demand and notice of pending claims. By evening, Vanessa responded in the only way Evelyn should have expected. She posted online. Ruth was the one who saw it first. She called Evelyn and said, don't look alone. So Evelyn did not. She opened the post while sitting at the table with Ruth on speaker. Vanessa had written a long, dramatic statement about betrayal, elder manipulation, and a mother-in-law who had become obsessed with money after giving a gift years earlier. She claimed Caleb had been emotionally abused by Evelyn's control. She claimed Evelyn had weaponized the police over a minor family misunderstanding. She claimed Vanessa's business was being destroyed by jealousy. She did not mention the forged signature. She did not mention the county filing. She did not mention Marcus Chen. Evelyn read the post once. Then she took screenshots, full page. Date visible, comments visible, account name visible. Ruth said, are you all right? No, Evelyn said, but I'm thinking clearly. That was when a comment appeared beneath Vanessa's post from an account Evelyn did not recognize. Vanessa, stop lying before I post the proof from Cincinnati. The comment vanished less than 30 seconds later. Evelyn had already captured it. Evelyn enlarged the screenshot until the text blurred at the edges. Vanessa, stop lying before I post the proof from Cincinnati. The comment was gone from the public post, but it remained in Evelyn's photo gallery. The account name was partially visible. Not enough to identify the person, but enough to suggest it had not been a random troll. Whoever had written it knew Vanessa personally. More importantly, they knew something connected to Cincinnati. Ruth stayed on the phone while Evelyn forwarded the screenshot to Martin. What's in Cincinnati? Ruth asked. I don't know, but Vanessa does. That much felt certain. Less than 10 minutes later, Martin called. Do not engage with the account, he said immediately. I wasn't planning to. Good, preserve everything. The original screenshot, metadata, timestamps, I want copies. Evelyn emailed them while he spoke. Cincinnati matters? She asked. Maybe. Or maybe the person wants you to think it does. Either way, it suggests Vanessa has a history she's trying to keep buried. Evelyn looked at the social media post again. Vanessa had spent hours painting herself as a victim. Hundreds of reactions had already appeared beneath it. Most came from people who knew only one side of the story. For a moment, the humiliation returned, not because strangers believed lies, because years ago Evelyn might have spent days trying to defend herself. Now she was collecting evidence. The difference felt small from the outside. To her, it felt enormous. The next morning began badly. Her debit card was declined at a grocery store. The cashier apologized. Evelyn paid with a credit card and walked calmly back to her car. Only after she sat behind the wheel did she feel her pulse quicken. She opened her banking app. Access denied. A second attempt produced the same message. Her stomach tightened. Immediately, she drove to her bank branch. The manager, a middle-aged woman named Heather, met with her in a private office after verifying her identification. Within minutes, they found the issue. Someone had submitted an online request 3 days earlier to update contact credentials associated with Evelyn's account profile. The request had not succeeded completely, but it had triggered a temporary security lock. Evelyn felt cold. "Who submitted it?" she asked. Heather shook her head. "We can see the request. We can see the originating device information, but we cannot identify a person from this screen." "Can you print it?" Heather hesitated. "I can provide records relating to your account security review, please." An hour later, Evelyn left the bank carrying another folder. The timing was impossible to ignore. First the property filing, then the credit inquiry, now an attempted credential change. Each incident alone might have looked harmless. Together they formed a pattern. Someone kept reaching for her financial life. Someone kept failing by inches. From the parking lot, she called Martin. His reaction was immediate. "Do not wait. Change every password today. I already planned to. Email, banking, insurance, retirement accounts, everything, I understand. Also, freeze your credit." Evelyn looked at the stack of papers beside her. "I'm doing that next." For the rest of the afternoon, she worked methodically. Passwords changed, recovery emails updated, two-factor authentication enabled, important documents moved into a secure lockbox at the bank, copies scanned, backups stored. Each action felt small. Together they felt like building a wall. At evening, Caleb appeared unexpectedly at her front door. His face looked exhausted. "You should have called first," Evelyn said. "I know." She considered sending him away. Instead, she opened the door. Caleb remained standing. "I got served." Evelyn nodded. Martin had warned her the notices were going out. How did Vanessa react? A bitter laugh escaped him. She threw a lamp. "That sounded believable. She says you're destroying the family." Evelyn crossed her arms. "And what do you think?" Caleb looked older than he had a month earlier. "I think I should have listened to you years ago." The words should have felt satisfying. Instead, they hurt. Because she remembered every time she had tried. Every warning dismissed. Every concern minimized. Every lie believed over her. "You didn't just ignore me," she said quietly. "You helped her." His eyes dropped. "I know." Silence settled between them. Finally, Caleb reached into his jacket. "I found something." Evelyn stiffened immediately. He pulled out several folded pages. "Where?" "Storage unit." Her heart skipped. "What storage unit?" "Vanessa rented one last year." That answer created more questions than it solved. Caleb handed over the papers. They were hidden inside a filing box. Evelyn unfolded them carefully. At first glance, they appeared ordinary. Business paperwork, vendor records, marketing expenses. Then she saw her own address. Again and again. 3 separate forms listed Evelyn's property as a business operating address, not mailing address, operating address. One document identified the property as an asset available for future event hosting. Another projected potential rental income. A third included estimated property value figures. Evelyn stared. "She was planning to use my house?" Cabe looked sick. I think she already was. The room suddenly felt smaller. The family home. The house Evelyn had spent decades paying for. The property Vanessa had no legal claim to. Reduced to numbers in a business proposal. Potential revenue. Future collateral. Projected earnings. Not a home. An asset. A tool. Evelyn photographed every page before touching anything else. What else was in the unit? Mostly business inventory. Nothing about Cincinnati? Caleb froze. The reaction lasted less than a second, but Evelyn saw it. Caleb. His jaw tightened. "What? You know something. I don't. Don't do this." He looked away. And that told her everything. Not everything about Cincinnati, but enough to know he had heard the name before. Enough to know he had hidden it. The disappointment hit harder than anger. Because for a few days she had allowed herself to believe he was finally telling the truth. "Who is in Cincinnati?" she asked. "I don't know exactly." "Exactly?" Caleb closed his eyes. Vanessa had a business partner. The room went still. "A partner?" She mentioned someone named Rachel once. "Once?" "A few times." "Why didn't you tell me?" His answer came too slowly. "Because I didn't think it mattered." Evelyn laughed once, not from humor, from disbelief. A forged signature, a county filing, a hidden lender, a storage unit, a mysterious business partner. and he hadn't thought it mattered. "Leave," she said. His head snapped up. "Mom, leave. I'm trying to help. You are helping. But every time I learn something new, it turns out you knew part of it already." His face collapsed. The guilt was genuine. So was her exhaustion. Without another word, he walked out. Evelyn locked the door behind him. Then she carried the new documents to the kitchen table. For nearly an hour, she studied them, line by line, number by number, until one entry stopped her cold. It appeared in the projected revenue sheet, a single notation, not highlighted, not hidden, just overlooked. Partnership transfer schedule. Next to it was a date from almost 11 months earlier, and beneath the date was a signature line. One signature belonged to Vanessa. The second signature belonged to someone named Rachel Donovan. The third signature space was blank, but the printed name beneath it made Evelyn's blood run cold. Evelyn Harper. As if they had been preparing a place for her signature long before the first forged document ever appeared. Evelyn barely slept that night. The blank signature line haunted her more than the forged county filing ever had, because it answered a question she had been asking for months. The house had never been the starting point. It had been the destination. Someone had been preparing paperwork that included her name long before any public filing appeared, long before the credit inquiry, long before Vanessa began talking about investments and future plans. The forged document had not been an impulsive mistake. It had been one step in a larger process. The next week moved quickly. Martin's team traced the documents from the storage unit and connected them to business records associated with Rachel Donovan in Cincinnati. The investigation revealed that Vanessa and Rachel had spent nearly a year building proposals that treated Evelyn's property as a future business asset. Not current ownership, future ownership. The distinction mattered. The plans assumed that at some point Evelyn would either sign documents voluntarily or be persuaded into arrangements that would place control elsewhere. Some forms referenced management agreements. Others referenced collateral options. None gave Vanessa legal ownership, but all of them depended on obtaining authority over Evelyn's property. Authority Evelyn had never granted. The evidence also established something important. The signature space reserved for Evelyn had remained blank because they never succeeded. That failure changed everything. The county filing, the attempted credential changes, the suspicious credit activity, and the business proposals together created a clear pattern of attempted financial manipulation. Not a completed takeover, an attempted one. That distinction protected Evelyn. It also protected years of work she had done to preserve ownership of her home. The legal process did not end overnight. It was not dramatic. There were meetings, document reviews, statements, corrections, notifications. Martin handled most of it while keeping Evelyn informed. The fraudulent filing was formally challenged. The lender involved in the credit inquiry received supporting documentation. Account protections remained in place. Several matters remained under review, but the immediate threat to her property was gone. For the first time in months, Evelyn felt something unfamiliar. Safety, not victory, not satisfaction, safety. One afternoon, Caleb asked to meet her at a small coffee shop halfway across town. Evelyn considered refusing. Instead, she arrived 10 minutes early. Caleb looked nervous when he walked in. Older, somehow, not because of age, because consequences had finally caught up with him. He sat across from her. "I wasn't honest soon enough." "No," Evelyn said. "You weren't," he nodded. There was no argument, no excuses, no attempt to redirect blame. That alone felt different. "I kept telling myself things weren't serious," he said quietly. "Every time something felt wrong, I found a reason to ignore it." Evelyn listened. "Sometimes because I didn't want conflict. Sometimes because I didn't want to know the truth." The admission hurt, but it also sounded real, not polished, not rehearsed, just painful. "What happens now?" he asked. Evelyn looked out the window. Cars moved through the afternoon traffic. People carried groceries. The world continued. "I don't know." The honesty surprised both of them, because for months everyone had expected her to have answers. A plan, a response, a strategy. But rebuilding trust was not paperwork. It was not something lawyers could draft. "I love you," she said, his eyes immediately filled. "But I don't trust you." The words landed heavily between them. "I understand. I hope someday that changes." "So do I." Neither pretended it would happen quickly. Neither pretended it was guaranteed. That conversation mattered more than either of them expected, because for the first time it was not about money, not about property, not about Vanessa. It was about truth. And truth had finally entered the room. Weeks later, Vanessa reached out through attorneys. The messages were formal, careful, far different from the public accusations and social media posts that had once filled her days. The reality of documentation had changed the conversation. Evidence had done what arguments never could. Several financial disputes remained active, and Vanessa faced ongoing consequences connected to records, filings, and business representations that could no longer be explained away as misunderstandings. Evelyn did not celebrate. She did not spend evenings imagining revenge. She simply stopped carrying responsibility for choices that were not hers. That became its own form of freedom. By early spring, the house felt different, not because anything physical had changed. The walls were the same. The kitchen was the same. The sunlight still landed across the dining room floor every morning. The difference was ownership, not legal ownership, emotional ownership. For years, Evelyn had slowly surrendered pieces of herself in exchange for peace, a favor here, a compromise there, a silence she should have broken, a boundary she should have defended. Each decision had seemed small. Together, they had almost cost her everything. Now the house belonged to her again in a deeper way. Not because she had defeated someone, because she had stopped abandoning herself. One Saturday morning, Ruth arrived carrying pastries and coffee. They sat on the back porch for nearly 2 hours, talking, laughing, planning simple things, future trips, volunteer projects, books they wanted to read. For so long, Evelyn's life had revolved around surviving family drama that she had forgotten something important. A future could be built around joy instead. Not just recovery, not just damage control, joy. That realization stayed with her. Several months later, Caleb sent her a photograph. Nothing dramatic. Just a picture of a small apartment living room he had furnished himself. A second-hand couch, a bookshelf, a lamp, a fresh start. No request for money accompanied the photo. No hidden agenda, just a message. Working on rebuilding. One day at a time. Evelyn stared at the picture for a long moment. Then she smiled. Not because everything had been fixed. Because someone was finally doing his own work, the way healing always happened. One day at a time. Late that evening, Evelyn walked through the quiet house. The same house that had nearly become the center of a legal nightmare. The same house people had tried to treat as an opportunity, an investment, a future revenue stream. She touched the hallway wall as she passed. Then she laughed softly to herself. The house had never been the point. Not really. The $40,000 had not been the point. The $620,000 had not been the point. The paperwork had not been the point. The true loss had always been trust. The real damage had been family betrayal. And the real recovery was not financial. It was learning that her dignity did not depend on who approved of her. Her future did not belong to people who wanted access to her property. Her peace did not require permission. For the first time in years, she felt entirely responsible for her own life again. That was the victory, not getting even, not proving someone wrong, not watching someone fall. Simply reclaiming control of what had always been hers, her choices, her voice, her boundaries, her life. Evelyn turned off the lights and headed upstairs. Tomorrow would be ordinary. And after everything that had happened, ordinary felt like a gift. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your dignity, what would you have chosen? And do you believe a mother-son relationship can heal after family betrayal, even when trust is never fully the same?